people, we get into a certain thing and we feel comfortable with it, and we have a tunnel vision when it comes to it. We won't see other things that's also coming into the fold and stuff. So it is about like that same Nation of Islam mentality back in the day. Muhammad put down certain rudimentary things. Now what that meant was, in scholarship, you have a person to put down rudimentary ideas, and it's up for the lay people and the futuristic brothers and sisters to come in, or the people in the future to come in and expound on that through scholarship. Give you an example. You got your Theosophical Society, started in 1888. Well, the first doctrines, the secret doctrines and Isis Unveiled by Blavatsky, they put out these books, these 2 volumes, Secret Doctrines and Isis Unveiled. I think she died in 1888 or something like that. And they went back in and got a lot of her lectures and pieced them together and put out these 2 mass volumes. From 1888 to 1998, you had a lot of these people coming in with Quest books, Lucius Press, and all these different things that came up out of the Theosophical Society, these several different research groups and book companies, and they had almost 100 years of people coming in and researching, you see, and expounding upon the rudimentary ideas that this woman and her group laid down in the late 1800s. Same thing with Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They put down these rudimentary information. It was left up for scholars to come in and expound upon that. And not just Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We talking about Noble Drew Ali. We talking about Marcus Garvey. We talking about all of them. But too often we have too much. The lay people have such a one-track mind or this sectarian vision until they couldn't see that the person who came after the particular visionary was doing the same thing. They were actually, expounding, that they were actually building upon the work. It was like, well, Elijah Muhammad didn't say that. Noble Drew Ali didn't say that. So this is a problem that we have, and now that's the same thing in the Afrocentric movement. I remember back in 94, there was some guy came to the Clark House, the brownstone or whatever they had in Harlem, and it was a guy, he was breaking this particular information down about something that was very advanced. And the people was around the table, they was looking at John Henry Clark, was like, is that right, John Henry Clark? I don't know, hell, ask him. But see, already we always, put this authority on people, you see what I'm saying? And everything is rudimentary. Hell, 20 years from now, or 10 or 5 years from now, my stuff will be rudimentary. You see what I'm saying? Because knowledge is infinite. And whenever you try to bottle it in, it always dies. That's how melanin is. It's the same thing. Whenever you try to trap it, it dies. That's the same thing with any type of conscious thought. Whenever you don't allow the freedom to expand, it dies. It's just like different music, which we're going to get into today, which is simple. It's interesting here. Because there will be a sound that come out to be a new genre, a new vogue in music, and then you might have 2 or 3 pioneers, and you might have 10 copycats.
There you go.
And about 2 or 3 years down the road, the energy, you see what I'm saying, has saturated it and dissipated it, and then it dies out. Then we have to do something else. You see? Well, it's that type of information. I think the scope of knowledge has to expand. And it has to be, and as a matter of fact, always look to the extreme. Now, let me give you an example. There was a guy at the Clark Atlanta University back in '98. We was up in Barnes & Noble bookstore talking, and this brother here, he been a part of the struggle now. He's not a dead person. This brother been a part of the person, but he was into that protest struggle. That's the model that he came from. That protest type of struggle on the front line. And it wasn't that the brother tried to shut things out. He was like, man, I really like what you're saying, but he said, but I'm having problems, trying to conceive what you're saying. You see, he said, I'm having a problem. I said, that's because you're locked into a certain mode. The blueprint or the archetype that you have chosen to view things, if anything comes outside of that blueprint, or outside of that periphery that you have set for yourself, that particular boundary, anything outside on the periphery, you can't conceptualize. I say, so do something. Reverse things. I say, for the next month, everything that sounds outlandish and bizarre, accept as truth. I said, even if you just reprogram the mind. I say, except that's true. And I say about a month later, you would have programmed the mind until you could actually go in and see that some things are very bizarre, but some things are actually creativity. You see, white boys had a conference back in 1986 called, it was a conference they coined melanin as the phrase creative physics. It's a book called Mark Balfour's book, The Sign and the Serpent. Mark Balfour, B-A-L-F-O-R. Mark Balfour. There's a book called The Sign, well, what did I say the first one? The Sign of the Serpent. The Sign and the Serpent is the name of the book. Anyway, they coined this phrase. They took all this particular research dealing with the kundalini, the chakras, the pineal gland, and in so many words, they created it. They made a new name, creative physics, because basically they're talking about that's how melanin works, based on the creative aspect. The muse has to keep creating. Once the muse is boxed in and becomes stagnant, the muse just goes dormant. It never dies, but it goes dormant. It goes dormant. We get into some research on, we always try to find the origins of things as much as we can on scholarship. So we knew that music came from Hemmitt. We knew the Greek term, the muse. You see, we know, we know the classical accepted information based on the music, the muse, the classical scale, the whole 9 yards, based on your educational structure, as well as, when we say we're talking about Western educational structure, the collegiate aspect of what they say things is supposed to be valid. And in this particular information, what we're supposed to do is we have to always keep going and looking to try to find the fragments to trace it back to the original version. There's a book that came out in 1998. It's called Gnosticism and Hermeticism. State University Press, SUNY University. You know, they got whole research teams unlocking the occult, the metaphysics, and all types of information in this book called Hermeticism and Gnosticism. And in this particular book, they actually trace the origin of the music and the arts all the way back to Hemmitt in the book. But they call it the Hermetic schools. Well, if most people don't know what the Hermetic school is, Hermes is the Greek Tahuti. You see, the Greek Thoth, and the Thoth is the Greek Tahuti. And the Hermetic schools is basically, in so many words, a discipline that came out of the mystery system. Discipline that came out of the mystery system. That's the type of research, you see, that we always have to keep looking for to validate this type of information, because the simple fact, this is very key when we're dealing with what we're dealing with today as far as music. It's not just, this is not the type of information based on, well, music and melanin. No, we're not talking about the stuff that you've already gathered. What we're talking about here is a conspiracy to make sure for the last 10 years, it started in like the late 80s, after this conference that Mark Balfour talked about in 1986. And in this conference, they concluded that the Kundalini energy, which is the vital force at the base of your spine, was rising on the planet. They say there's a great serpent that is rising, as above, so below. They understood that there was this thing rising actually in the actual planet. Because so whatever we do, the planet is also a living specimen. You call it Gaia. You got different names for it. But as things that go on in the physical body, there's things that also go on within the planet. So they said that basically this serpentine energy was rising on the planet. This is in 1986. So around the same time that they had this conference, your boy Lenny Byers dies of crack cocaine, and that's the first time that we knew of it as a national phenomenon. You have to trace things back. Lenny Byers dies of crack cocaine. Tip O'Neill, 2 weeks later, comes in and gives this strenuous drug law about crack cocaine that hadn't even so-called hit the streets yet in the national phenomenon to say, hey, we have an epidemic. They already had legislation passed for it to lock people down. All the stuff you did, 3 strikes you out and all this type of stuff, they had stuff already passed for it 2 weeks after Lenny Byers died. They were just waiting for one fatal case to introduce this thing. You see, also introduce this information because also we find out that melatonin is in crack cocaine. Why else would it hit black people so hard? So I'll give you some information on this in a few minutes. Some things, always some things happen, and always some things happen spiritually. Now, going back, it's 1986. They automatically understood that one thing what they were going to have to do was they're going to have to shut down the actual music. They understood that there was going to be a link that what you hear, you see what I'm saying, would also be a form of the effect of the melanin that you were going to have to deal with in the future. Now, I wish Steve Freeman was here because it's a guy, he always quotes the guy, I just can't think of his name. Khan, the guy that wrote the book, he's a Sufi master, and he told the people that the new music, he said that the new religion will not be a religion at all, it would be a music. It would be something that would be heard from the spheres of the cosmos or the ethers that will open people up. I can't think of the guy named Khan is his last name. But I know it's a Sufi master. Anyway.
Hazrat Inayat Khan.
That's it. Hazrat Inayat Khan. That's it. He has a nice book out on, I think it's still in print on music. And he said that the new music, the new religion won't be a religion at all, it would be a music or a sound coming from the spheres. Something that can radiate cross cultural lines and cross ideology that will basically open people up. We know this happens. What's that?
It's weird. I got a videotape of Jimi Hendrix on the Dick Cavett show. And he said the same thing to Dick Cavett.
Isn't that interesting? Because that's a part of this particular aspect of the whole Hendrix thing that I'll get into in a few minutes, some other stuff that tapped into. So we got other instances as the Rosicrucians knew. It's also in the back of the book, that little book, little pink book, everybody that Vera Stanley Adler or something, Alder, Finding the Third Eye. And she puts one quote in there about how in the last days the pineal glands would open up. And she got that from a book called Rosicrucian Cosmos Conception, which is a very racist book. It's like from the late 1800s. But they also quoted this as well as Edgar Casey said that there would be a world avatar that would be incarnated on the planet called John Pineal. Well, if you trace the root of John that he's talking about, the John is supposedly the John the Baptist of the Bible, if you trace that back, John is Tahuti. You get John. See, you got these different avatars, these different spiritual principles that were later on historicalized. Sublime mythology makes grotesque history. Alvin Boyd Kuhn. So you have this sublime mythology that's historicalized. So you get John, you get Enoch, you get Elijah, you get Anush, you get Anup, you get Anubis, you get Tahuti. All of that is the same thing. There's a god called Hermanubis, which Tahuti is the opener of the way, Anubis is the opener of the way. You see, you get a god Hermanubis because Hermes is the Greek Tahuti. So he said John, which is Tahuti, which is the science of melanin, alchemy, pineal. So you're talking about the staff and the caduceus. John Pineal. Now this is interesting because the same energy that's supposed to be the Kundalini energy rising on the planet. It's interesting because there was a sister in one of the lectures down in Atlanta. She's a black filmmaker. And I think I haven't seen her since March or April because she's been making her film. She got enough people for extras just in my lecture. You know, everybody want to be in a movie. I announced her sister making a film and she need help. People start pulling out wigs and all kinds of shit. Anyway, the sister said that about a year ago, about 2 years ago, she was acting, I think probably around 99. They were looking on the eve of the millennium. And this girl was at the Carter Center. This is Jimmy Carter. You know, every president has their presidential library and center. And at the Carter Center in Atlanta, Jimmy Carter's son came out and said, we have been trying to stop the Kundalini or serpentine energy on the planet. And we have been successful. We have just a little bit to go. So that means in actuality, in order to stop the serpentine energy, he wasn't talking about the physical planet, that's impossible. They were talking about taking out melanated people. You see. And we know that Jimmy Carter has done more work outside of the presidency than he did all 4 years of the presidency. He did more work in 1 year. You see what I'm saying? But I said, this is the actual Sun was talking about how they were stopping this Kundalini energy. So in so many words, they were saying in so many words, we have gone around the globe and we're taking indigenous people and we are murdering them and we have a control on this. Give you another example, which is a key. This summer, our brother and sister moved down from Tallahassee, Florida. They just finished FAMU. I think he finished in 2000. His girl finished in 2001. Her family's from Haiti. They moved to Atlanta. I think at the end of 2001, she went and got a job at a research company working in working on her major, working in a major. She went and got a job at some chemical research company. Whatever happened, there was some type of Arab that was in trouble based on some type of research he needed or whatever. I can't give you the logistics, but anyway, she helped this guy out and got him out of this trouble. The Arab said, well, since you got me out of this trouble, I'm going to say some things to you to help you. Apparently after 9/11, unlike us, they know that they were under attack. So what these Arabs have done is become and got research and intelligentsia groups to study what is going to be the next trait or the next type of conspiracy that's going to go off against them. So they got people, just like us, we got people working in every damn department in America. You see, and that's how we get a lot of our ideas and stuff. When people come back and say, you know, it's like one sister from Lilly Pharmaceutical that worked on the melatonin program. And a brother that worked on the melatonin program and talked about this particular sister, and all of a sudden the sister got sick in the late 80s, late 90s. You see what I'm saying? But knowing too much. Anyway, the Arabs are doing the same thing. They got intelligentsia groups that's undercover, trying to figure out what's the next move with the government, since their face is the one on this little particular terrorism type thing. We know that it's going to come back to us. You see what I'm saying? When they traced that boy from the Taliban back to Malcolm X, the guy that got caught, the white boy? When they traced it back to Malcolm X and said that's where he got his inspiration from, you best believe, I said, I knew it was coming. They're going to trace this thing right to us. You see? So anyway, they got this intelligentsia group, and so they're studying all this particular information, and they have this next wave of where they researched and found out where this stuff was coming. Anyway, the guy told the sister, say, well, you help me, I'm going to help you. Do not drink Coca-Cola after August 26th. Now, I was right on it because in Atlanta, in 1999, they had 12 packs of the regular Kroger. You have the supermarket and you have the generic brand of the supermarket. So they first tested it out. They got Kroger's down there. So they had the generic brand was 12 packs, 99 cents. And black people had 2 shopping carts full. Stop piling on damn soda. All right, so they tested it out. This year they came up with the brand label. Coca-Cola, 12 packs, 99 cents. Hell, that cost you damn near $1 to get a can of soda out of a machine. How the hell are you going to get 12 more? Even if it's 50 cents, my goodness. You see, 12 packs, 99 cents. They did it in June. Black people bought these things up. Then in July, they took it off, took it back to $2. Black people, was real sad, like, man, I missed out on that. So then in August, they came out again with the 12 pack for 99 cents. And so that made a greater incentive, and they bought these things up. Now, it's interesting because one of the brothers doing the research said, well, people who are experts, they're going to tell if that Coke, if it's slightly off, they're going to tell. So here comes my mother, damn near Coke drinker for 40-something years. She was like, something wrong with the Coca-Cola. I said, well, you should know. You should know. This has been your blood. Something wrong with the Coca-Cola. Mother in South Carolina, you know what you do. She was like, something wrong with the Coke. Now, mind you, this is a woman that has a keen sense of smell. She could smell somebody outside this building. So the marijuana thing and all that kind of stuff, I couldn't get into that in high school because I know down the street. What's that smell? You know? My mama said, no, you take this deodorant and take a chain and put it around your neck. When I was 7, put this around your neck. It's interesting. So I know when she said, well, there's something wrong with the coat. So she said, well, that's mullins. She went up, came up to Atlanta. My brother said, oh, he's advanced vegetarian. He went out and bought her. He broke down and bought her a coat. And she drank and she said, no, something is wrong with this. Now, it's interesting. One of the brothers made the observation. He said, well, in that case, that's why they're going to come out with the vanilla Coke. And then the vanilla Coke, they came out with the vanilla Coke, and which was interesting. They say, because if it's got another taste in it, you wouldn't be able to tell. You just think whatever the taste they give you, that's the way it's supposed to taste. And boom, they had at the end of August, they had an actual Consumer Report thing on TV, and they said vanilla Coke was number one with black teens, black teenagers. You see, so apparently now this is not far-fetched, because remember they had the same thing happen in Europe in '99. In 1999, they had a bunch of people got sick off of Coca-Cola, but it was bound for Africa. But somehow the shipment got fucked up and they ended up in Switzerland or somewhere. You see. So this is this is the tech. Now other researchers is finally they're coming out with the research to say that basically it is the fluoride that hardens the pineal gland. Hardens the pineal gland. Remember Dick Gregory was saying, on one of the tapes said that they got a number to call. Like the fluoride said, if you take it, it says, if you take it, call this number. Not go get a doctor. Call this number, because whatever you swallow, ain't no doctor can help you. You need to call this number if you swallow the fluoride. So they came out recently about the fluoride actually calcifying the pineal gland. But the thing about it is Phil Valentine did a lecture down in Atlanta on July the 20th, and he had an entire list of all the stuff that fluoride is in. Just about 90% of the foods. You see. Now, and it's interesting because around the same time that the Coke came out, all of a sudden we go up in the shopping center and they got fluoride water all over the place. You see. The other concept here dealing with this is summer of 2001, they announced on CBS News that they were going to have to stop, they were going to have to come in, they were going to have to cut off all the lights on the big skyscrapers in those major cities. So they say after a certain time around 12 o'clock, they were going to have to cut them off. Now notice they started doing it in Atlanta back in '96. After a certain time, they have to cut it off, and then they said, well, what it is what little bit of melanin we produce is not being produced because of the bright lights in the actual city. The body doesn't know to go to sleep, and the melatonin production is not being produced because they got all these black lights, all these bright lights. You see what I'm saying? They talked about this last summer. Then all of a sudden the reports came out about how basically if there's any light in the room, you're going to have problems producing the amount of melatonin in sleep, as well as electromagnetic force fields or whatever, ELF waves. Right. That all this is all of this particular stuff that produces the flow of melatonin or melanin is cut short based on TV, radio, and all kinds of things you have in your room. You see what I'm saying? The best thing to do if you got all that in the room is to unplug it. You see, it's to unplug it because all of a sudden now, all the new stereo, which you want to get into, they got this thing called standby, which has got a big red light that comes on. You see what I'm saying? After you cut it off, now unless you unplug it, it's still on. You see, well, we already knew that about the TV. So they were saying these ELF waves is also hindering the production of melatonin, because the other war is the war against sleep. to make sure that you don't go to sleep. The war against sleep. That's the other war. They have to have a certain group of indigenous people. Number one, the best war against sleep is called work. You can't really truly get a good night's sleep because you got to work. You know what I'm saying? And you know how it is even when you're working. If you got to get up early, you still got to stare at that clock a certain amount of times. And you go back and forth to sleep. The key here is not to get to the deep sleep realm. That's the key. There's two kinds of sleeps. There's regular sleep, and then there is deep sleep. And the deep sleep realm. I'll get a little controversial in a few minutes and stuff to tell y'all how to jack in. You can do it or you whatever. But so far we've had such success with this thing. And I'll give you the medical aspect about that because Dr. Andau also said something that I understood. See, medicine is not necessarily non-African. See, sometimes we go to the extremes. Medicine is not non-African. The pharmaceutical industry is saying only medicine. That's the difference. So the medicine is the ongoing research. It's basically alchemy. You see what I'm saying? And that's not non-African. You see, the what you call it is saying only medicine, the pharmaceutical companies. You see what I'm saying? It's saying only medicine, and that's what makes imbalance. But we had medicine. Otherwise, we got alchemical texts that deal with this particular, that's the origin of where all this stuff comes from. So pharmaceutical is not necessarily bad. Only pharmaceutical is bad. You see, so we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and I even warned against that also. You see what I'm saying? So you have two different things, because on earth, I don't give a damn, how can something actually be artificial? The earth has to produce it. Even that plastic is produced by the earth. You see what I'm saying? Now, that's a controversial thing for some people. We'll get back into that in the question and answer. I'm going to go on. The key here is the deep sleep realm. And that's the realm that you need to get to. It's deep sleep realm. Now just remember that, because I'm going to have to go back, but I need to get into this particular aspect of this conspiracy of music to let you understand what's going on here. We know that music came out of the Hermetic schools or the Tahuti schools, or the wisdom of Tahuti, or the priesthood of Tahuti, or basically what they call the Hermetic schools in Hemmitt, came up through so-called Greece and Rome and whatever, but the majority of the spheres and everything that we have based on music now was given to the Europeans by the Moors. By the Moors. We also know that that majority of, we know that just about all of that, now because it's interesting because the Europeans now go say, oh, we find these ancient texts floating around in Europe. We don't know where their origins come from. So they got some stuff called the Lesser Key of Solomon. These ancient texts come out of the mystery school, the Greater Key of Solomon, and they got these people translate all this stuff. But then they're going to say, well, the origins is obscure. How they got in Europe, we don't know. We know damn well how they got in Europe. The Moors took them there. So the whole, so a part of the whole music aspect, because remember now that word is because like the guy Khan, what's his name? The whole music aspect, the way they get it from the Moors, we understand. And anytime you hear that word Sufi, you know, that's woolly-haired one is also a name, translation, Sufi, woolly-haired ones. In your boy's book, what's the guys, The People of the Secret? Tell you his name in a few minutes. The People of the Secret is the name of the book. I get something Wilson, Wilson, I'll tell you in a few minutes. Anyway, going back when it comes to this particular science of the actual spheres that the European gets, in the Hermetic schools, they understand that in so many words, if you look at the history of black people, let's say from 1865, let's just start, that's a good way to start, from 1865 on up. If you look at the history of black people, whatever technological advances that we gave the white man and he stole, which is the majority of the stuff, also on the periphery or on the other dimension of that, the music that was produced by the Africans, mainly in the diaspora, but especially in America, has been is just as advanced as any technological feat that the white man either stole or even put forth on the planet during the same time. When you think about it, when we talk about just the complexity of the actual music, in so many words for the people, because a lot of people, we think this the technology is the only thing synonymous to genius. You see what I'm saying? But when you look at and you break this thing down pound for pound, the music realm that was produced from the Negro spirituals from slavery, which remember now was put together, the Negro spirituals was actually put together by the fifth Jubilee Choir, you know, people put this stuff, they brought out this particular stuff that was actually underground music to the rest of the world. And then later on, the blues was put to that and made gospel. You know, you hear all these Christians, I don't have a blues record in my house, and don't even know that gospel was started from the blues.
That's right.
You know, what's my man name that lost all his money in the Depression? Blues singer, went and fused that thing in, which is basically the archetype and the blueprint of gospel music. In so many words, dealing with that, dealing with the jazz, dealing with this thing on into even the funk, which is a very advanced level. Very advanced level is the funk. Anything that makes you damn dance that well is very advanced. You see what I'm saying? Bootsy Collins should be right up there with Tahuti, Jesus, or whoever the hell. You put Marcus Garvey, you better put George Clinton and Bootsy Collins and the rest of them. James Brown is not a genius. Are you out of your mind? Now, try to understand the concept here. They understood by studying the muse and studying creative physics that this is comparable to any advanced technology on the planet given by us to the world and made gains by even Europeans or anybody else on the planet. The music, the only thing that was comparable to it on the planet Earth on that level was the music, and the music in the 20th century is fundamentally black. Hands down.
That's right.
Even fucking country.
That's right.
Hands down. There's no argument on that. You don't even get a white person argument on that. So music, but the music was technologically advanced. And then they figured it out. They said, wait a minute, hold on. We have held these people down where they cannot have the same access to the technology in the same way we do, because we purposely oppress these people. But these people, for every technological gain, they have produced the music that is comparable to it. And in so many words, that was technological itself, because that music outlasts some of the technology that becomes outmoded. You see what I'm saying? You can always go and get some, I like to call it classical funk, classical so-called rock and roll. When I say rock and roll, it's different because, you know, there was rock and roll, you see what I'm saying, which is nothing but R&B, rhythm and blues, which is rock and roll. They said, well, that's rock and roll, we're going to try to take it from black people. Then by what, 1970, 71, they just say rock. You see, and then your children grow up thinking the rock is fundamentally white. You see what I'm saying? And we're talking about rock from 1971 on up is nothing but the started Jimi Hendrix. Bottom line. Bottom line. The model for that was not done before Jimi Hendrix.
That's right.
You see. Now, dealing with this, because I'm going to go right into the conspiracy now. Let's hold on 1 minute. They can look and they can see the technological advances in the music. That means if you oppress a people, that not only you don't give them the aspect, or you don't give them the access to the actual technology. You give them access every day, that's called a job. But you got to go home and leave whatever you done created for them. And, you know. So, but if you don't give them the access to the technology on the planet, they have produced the technology that's much more advanced. All the way even down to healing. You see, now, stick with me on this. So we got two worlds going on. We have a physical world based on physical science. Now remember now, it was based on secret societies in the 17 and 1800s. Said, look, we have learned what is called the Hermetic laws that they got from the Moors of Spain and the 16 universities and the whole 9 yards, including the distillation of alcohol it's an alchemical practice that came out of Hemmitt, not just beer. The distillation of alcohol is very alchemical and is very fundamental to melanin. You just got to remix it. I'll go into that in a few minutes. We'll go into that in the tutorial or whatever. Now listen to me. Very key, because we have it in the text. You see what I'm saying? So I don't have to come and say some things. We always research and put on a nigga ass on the scholarship level. You see, you just have to deal with it. Now, dealing with this thing, they understood that when you fuse this particular, the Hermetic schools, they decided one thing in the Hermetic schools, or what they call after they ousted the Moors. We understood that in Hemmitt that you had whatever you call technology on the physical science, it was always comparable with that on the spiritual sciences. And they were never separated.
There you go.
The European made sure they separated both, and they said, we're going to make sure that when we talk about academia, or on the collegiate level, which we sanction, it always has to be on the physical science. Even when you start talking about philosophy, or when you start talking about even religion, what do they call that? They call that, everything is based on the way they categorize things. So you have your religious aspect.
It's called sacred.
No, but when they categorize things.
Theology.
That's theology. And theology, that's theology. That is never supposed to mix with technology. You see, so they always categorize things. Even if you go into much more advanced aspects of philosophy, on into the metaphysical and the spiritual aspect, you see, you never are supposed to, it's never supposed to coincide and bond together. But yet Princeton, yeah, you can go to these schools, but yet in their libraries, like I say, State University in New York, SUNY, Princeton, that's all they do. It's just based on the discipline that they give you. It's always got to be separated. You see, so what happened is you got black people that go to these particular schools and they actually think, well, that's all right, but then again, on the other hand, hard-nosed science is much more valid. You understand what I'm saying? And the first thing the doctor does, the white boy, you ever seen a doctor when he gives up and the person gets well anyway? The first thing they do is, well, you know, miracles do happen. I thought you didn't believe in miracles. Now since you failed. Now going back. So they make sure that they don't combine the two. All right. So we do know that the spiritual discipline, when we talk about music, is vital when it comes to technology. Because what is in the Kabbalion, the three initiates? What is the first law of the universe? This is the Hermetic science, the book, the Kabbalion of the three initiates. What is the first law of the universe? Vibration. Ask any woman about that. Or any woman know this. You can go get me a tickle me Elmo that move like this. She can put that between her legs. You see what I'm saying? And lock your ass out the door. That's science. What is the first law of the universe? Vibration. Any woman, you got a clitoris, you know that. You know that. You should take a damn little Snoopy dog and move like this. So, you need to take your ass in the other room. You done pissed me off. Grab the Snoopy, bloop. That's it. The first law of the universe in Hermetic science, which is the Hermetic, which is the Tahuti, which is the science of melanin, the science of alchemy, is what? Vibration. It's vibration. You see. Now, dealing with this science, they understood, to make a long story short, that it was 3 times more advanced than any technological thing that they had. Remember now, in the white boy's technology, he will learn something that he gets from the ancient model, which is African, or which is ancient indigenous black folks. And he would rather hold on to something, he'll hold on to it 100 years until he figures out a way to produce something that he created, to do it in his method, than to give you the method 100 years ago. So half of the science that they got It's stuff that they had to take the damn near 130, 40 years just to create it in their method to always fool you. Say them white people showing up and coming up with some new stuff every day. But they have already had the rudimentary model to this particular aspect 100 years ago. You see, but they would rather hold on to it until the process of their way of presenting it. And until they do that, they go, oh, it doesn't exist. That's hocus pocus. That, you know, nah, that's crazy. That's a conspiracy. Now, dealing with this, the conspiracy starts, we know, in the jazz era. But do you know that there's even conspiracies that even, you know around Sam Cooke? Isn't it funny how these major icons always end up dying? There's even conspiracies, and we'll always accept conspiracies. You see what I'm saying? Because we live by that. White people say, nah, racism doesn't exist. And we know different. So any fool, never take what the cracker says face value. Do you know there's even conspiracies? There's some stuff in New York you all know of, by the name of Burt Lockett. They call it Hat Shack Suit. I used to speak with her a lot. She even went to Columbia University, I think, and did a whole lecture on music. And there's also conspiratorial views that even down to your boy Nat King Cole ended up getting taken out. But that ain't nothing. They can give you what they want in the damn hospital. Because in order for damn Frank Sinatra to be the reigning king of that type of genre, they had to take Nat King Cole out, which was the real talent.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? They looked at people like Sam Cooke. They understood it's called psychosexual. They understand that there's a bond between the psychosexual energy and the archetype of the virile black man based on the Osirian energy, that they had to start taking these people out. So mysteriously, Sam Cooke. Your boy, if you go and really study Elvis, we know that Elvis got his stuff from black people, but I'm talking about his style. There's no difference between his style and what Jackie Wilson did in the 1950s. It's almost identical. Then all of a sudden, boom, he's phased out and never don't let, because a person gets sick, a person gets strokes and all that, that can be induced or produced. That's nothing. It's always a pattern. It's always a pattern. You see, now Jimi Hendrix, Aleister Crowley, the occultist, got some Greek texts that came out of Hemmitt. It came out of the Library of Alexandria, translated into Greek. It's a play called The Rites of Lucius. It's called The Rites of Lucius. He got this papyrus, this Egyptian play, because they say it's Greek, but all those characters is Aset, you know, Isis, Osiris, you see Osar, Tahuti, Anubis, all those people are in the actual play. You know, and I remember, because the playbook used to cost like $80 or $90 just to get the playbook, The Rites of Lucius. You can probably still get it, or you might can go on the internet and download it. Now, this is very interesting. He got this Rites of Lucius play, translated it, and took the shit on the road in the early 20th century, early 1900s, on college campuses. And he was on college campuses, and they would just go in and see the play. And when they would go, and when they would come in and see the play, based on the energy and the characters in the play, they would go into altered states of consciousness. So as a result of them going into altered states of consciousness, the government, the British government came in and banned the play. Now, 70 years later, 60 years, 70 years later, 60 years, 70 years later, Jimi Hendrix is in England playing to these white folks. Next thing they know, there's words going around Europe that his music is putting people in altered states of consciousness. Then in 1993, they put out a compilation, MCA put out a compilation of all his music. And in the pamphlet, they tell you that the woman said, the white woman that killed him, These are her words. He decided he was going back to America. He had an experimental music that he was going to fuse in with the blues or whatever the deal is. He had already had agreement with the Isley brothers, his cousins, that they was going to come in, which later on became the agreement after his death kept on. That's why the Isley brothers to this day is a group that was ahead of their time. And they, I mean, once the 3 plus 3 got together in 73, when they had to wait till the other 3 brothers graduated from college. And when they put this thing together, the other ones came out in the 50s. The other 3, when they put it together, they had already had a blueprint that they was going to fuse in the experimental rock and roll of Jimi Hendrix into the blues or the so-called R&B from the 50s and the 60s on up. And that's where you get the collaboration of the Isley brothers. It was already a plan that was collaborated between them and Jimi Hendrix. So he said he was going back home. He was through. He was going back home, and he was through with the European thing, and he was going back home. And the woman said he had a headache that night, and he said, "No, I'm just going to go to bed." And in the compilation CD of 1993, the woman says, "I convinced him to take the sleeping pills." Then he took the sleeping pills, and she said, "I got up that morning and I went into the room and I realized that he had thrown up, but he was still alive, and I went on back to bed." I'm like, come on, man, they took this guy right on out of here. You see, they took him right on out. Now, going on, you got your it's called psychosexual energy. If they knew that the new music is coming, and the new religion is coming, and it's going to be a music, then Osiris is going to come through a person with a microphone in his hand. You see, then all of a sudden, Teddy Pendergrass. No, we don't give a damn about the sexual orientation. That don't have nothing to do with it. The image and the icon, when it comes to the masses of people, is the only thing that counts. So the next thing you know, Teddy Pendergrass gets taken out. You see what I'm saying? To this day, we still trying to figure out Marvin Gaye's death. You know, this thing here, I just don't buy it. Because I also know that he also said he had held off the tantric thing. He studied sexual tantra, and he held it off about 4 years. Before he said about putting this stuff, infusing this stuff into his music. And then he said, fuck it, I'm going to come out with it. And he started off with sexual healing. And the next thing you know, he said, well, I'm coming with even more stuff by my next album. And he never, they put out some stuff after he died, but Sexual Healing was basically his last major album. You see what I'm saying? So my point is, now what I'm saying here is this here. They have to kill the archetype. That is why the archetypes that came in the 1980s on up has been androgynous figures. They had to get rid of that Osirian, virile black man. Barry White was able to escape. I guess they figure, well, you know, he's 300 pounds. But Isaac Hayes was lucky. Isaac Hayes was lucky. They just bankrupted him in the mid-70s. You know, they can destroy your character. You know, just for a person becoming bankrupt, you know, the way the mind is, we say, oh man, you know, I don't want to hear that nigga music. He couldn't even hold on to his money. And that's the way we think. It's always the science. Then the androgynous figures come in like Prince, Michael Jackson, and even Luther. You see what I'm saying? Luther is no Teddy Pendergrass. His music is, but we're talking about an archetypal energy, a certain type, a certain height. You see what I'm saying? A certain stature. And why is it that all these people keep biting the dust? Now, stick with me, because this is what's going on. From the 1986, from this conference, and understanding that the Kundalini energy was rising, which has also to do with vibrations. And the monitor is twixt the woman's legs, the clitoris. All this stuff here coincides. That's the key, you know. Now, they knew since 1986, they said we're going to have to stop this music. First of all, and I talked about this in other lectures, they found out in the 1970s after putting pure scunion on black people's behind every damn day, whipping black people every day. They said, man, we put all kind of shit on these people. We put all kind of things on these people. And these people end up they just don't come down sick like we think. You know, they just, you know, something is wrong. What they found out, that based on LPs, an album, and I talked about this before, an album is vinyl. Anything that you get vinyl, any kind of rubber, any type of vinyl, any type of plastic, when it is first made, it is clear. Anytime you get it to a darker hue, you have to cook it down to its most carbonated form. And what is melanin? Carbon. 6 protons, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons. Carbon. So you have to cook it down to the most carbon form. That's what the black tires on your car. Then you understand why black people go crazy over cars. You know what I'm saying? Shit, I had a damn uncle, 1968. He came home and my grandfather said, let me drive your car. And that nigga like lost his mind. You know, we savages on that level. Now, anyway, you have to cook it down to the most black aspect of the carbonated aspect. And so an album, number one, it was round. Look in the wings of the staff of Tahuti, and you will see what? You'll see 2 wings of what? A black dot. An LP or 45 was round. That is a form of a black dot. Now stick with me on this. On an LP, you have grooves, which means you have an actual recording. That means that when they originally recorded it, whatever sounds came, the needle or whatever it was that recorded it, the device actually made a recording. It's an actual recording dug into black vinyl, okay? Which is vibration, which is pure carbon. In a round disc. First of all, that made the shit round. They was like, oh shoot. Then, most needles, the cheap needles, were either sapphire, which is a stone, or the gemstone, or diamonds. What is diamond? Crystallized carbon. So they understood that the LP with this turntable was crystallized carbon on music coming from black people in a carbon round disc that coincided with the melanin, and black people was healing their damn self on the weekend through the party.
All right, that's right.
Hello. Then they said we have to go hologram. So by 1990, they came out with, it was actually Zenith that invented CD technology. And they had a lot of problems in the early 80s. The supply, the demand was bigger than the supply. They finally got it online by 88. By 88, they could see the production in the store, and they brought out the compact disc. Now we liked it because the simple fact it's convenient. That's the first thing. Number two, we said it sounds so clear. But what we didn't realize was, only thing they did was they EQ'd a sound. If you had an equalizer, your LP is going to give you the same EQ boost. So the only thing they did was it was louder than the LP, but the only thing you needed was the equalizer. Now stick with me because it goes right into the conspiracy. So they gave the CD. A CD is not a recording. It is a hologram coming from something else and put into there. And it's done with a laser. So it's not an actual recording. It's a hologram. Now, this is the key. I've been studying this occult for about 14 years now, which means that which is hidden. So my job was to go in and get as much material and bibliography I could find in the occult realm. That's where I come to the table with is the actual research that I had to do over the past 10 years. The good part about me is everything I ever read, I remember. You know why? Because, you know why I have a photographic memory? Because I was one of the students that couldn't get the academic thing together in high school. And that makes all the difference in the world and where your genius comes from. So I was one of the people, I was an artist. And I was a good artist. I was one of the best artists in the state of South Carolina. It's just like a person that plays basketball. That's all you do. You walk around with the basketball in your hand. I was an artist, and the only thing I did from damn second grade to graduate high school is Drew. And everybody say, oh, he's an artist, that's what he's going to do. So I was into the arts. You see what I'm saying? So my point is, the academic thing, I didn't get it together for the simple fact I didn't have to. I was such a genius talent on the art thing, they was like, oh man, go ahead, this social promote your ass. And when I got to college, they said, get this nigga A's and B's anyway. I made the dean's list 3 semesters in a row, all because my artwork was phenomenal. Now, it wasn't until the late 20s that I started coming to the academic side, but then again, on the other hand, I could see things different than what I could have seen, or what I would have seen if I would have been applied myself into the left-brain European shutdown model. Okay, now, dealing with this particular information, I noticed by default, a couple of months ago, I said, damn, I've researched literally hundreds and hundreds of occult books, and I never hear these white people talk about the ear. Talk about the ear. In all these books. And I said, damn, that's just like all the other occult books. Anything that deals with black people, like the pineal gland, most of the occult books don't have it in there. They might mention it on one page. You see, you got earlier people that was obscure, like Hilton Hotima, but he was never really a published author. Most of that stuff from health research is hell. Half the manuals is still done on the typewriter. So my point here is, I said, damn, here's the conspiracy again. I said, I've been here, I've been doing this thing, I've been studying this for 10 years, and I've never seen anything on the ear. In all these occult books, they break down all, I said, oh, there it is again. Because I remember what Richard King said. You see, basically by doing the research, when they omit stuff, that's because it's about you. I said, well, in that case, shit, let me go to Richard King. I go to the African Arts of Biological Psychiatry. You see, I done had it over 10 years at this time. I go and put the book right there on page 40 or 30 with the melanin nucleus, inner ear nucleus, the doorway to the temple. I'm like, but wait a minute, hold on. If the inner ear is the doorway to the temple, and I don't see no occult books, there's only one thing that got me. I remember back in 1993 reading the Book of Thoth by Aleister Crowley, which is the book on the tarot. The Book of Thoth is he had this angel called Awas, which was a former Horus that came and visited him, and they gave him all this particular information. The Book of Thoth was important because a lot of the stuff that the tarot, which came out of Spain, which the Moors brought up from Hemmitt, out of the Egyptian mystery system, the tarot, your playing cards comes from the tarot. You see what I'm saying? So there was some things that was missing. He put them back in this particular book. Real technical, but in the book, in his chapter on the fool is the tarot. The first, you got what? How many? 42 arcane or 32? How many major arcane? Anybody with the tarot?
22.
22. The fool is the first card. It's the only card that, not only is it the first card, it's the only card that can be used throughout the entire deck. Why? Because as long as you remain innocent, that's the only way you can ever really learn. You got to stay humble. You see what I'm saying? That's the only way you can ever really learn. You see what I'm saying? Now, in the part about Harpocrates, which is supposed to be the fool, the Egyptian god Harpocrates is a little god with a thumb in his mouth, sitting on a lotus, which is Horus the baby. The baby Horus, you ever hear the baby Jesus?
Yeah.
The baby Jesus. Well, that's Horus, a Heru, with the thumb in his mouth called Harpocrates. You even get the word hypocrite, the Hippocratic oath, all that comes from Harpocrates. You ever hear the god Cupid? You know the god Cupid is the baby Horus, called Eros in one thing, Cupid, Eros in Greece, Cupid in Rome. That's the baby Horus, or the baby Jesus. Now, Harpocrates is known as the fool in the tarot deck. Crowley has something that's so profound in the book under the fool, and it says, because it was one of the only explanations I got on a level that started talking about on a level. Y'all want to wait till he put that in. This is very important. This is literally the crux of the actual lecture, which bring me into my odyssey that I had to go on in the spring of the year. Because we're going to bring this thing down to realism right now in a few seconds. So I want to just get this. You on? Okay. Harpocrates is the fool in this room. In Crowley's book, right under the fool, the book of Thoth, he says, gives one of the greatest explanations for the Heru or the Horus lock. He said the Horus lock is not necessarily dealing with the hair itself, but it is suggesting that the Horus lock, you know what that is? You ever see the little Jews with the little, for the people don't know, they got a little lock of hair. Well, they are copying that, well, the isn't really, the fake Jews are copying that from the ancient Egyptian practice of the child with the Horus lock, or the Heru's lock. He says in the book that the Heru's lock is not necessarily based on hair, although we know that that's the whole melanin thing too. He said, but it suggests something on the inside of the ear. First thing I said, well, there go your pineal gland, because that's where it's going to end up. And he calls it the Bhararandra chakra. You see, now deal with this, he says. He's dealing with the child Heru in the book. He said that the Horus lock, or the Heru's lock, is not necessarily dealing with the hair itself, but it suggests that the Heru's lock is dealing with something on the inside of the ear called the Bhararandra chakra. And he goes in and says that this particular chakra in the ear that the Heru's lock is suggesting. This Bhararandra chakra is the highest level of Akasha spirit. Okay. Now you got to go back and see what the word Akasha. If you go, the word Akasha, Akash means black. You get the Akashic records, you get the word Akash, and then you used to also get your girl in the movie, Queen of the Damned, was called what? Akasha. And what happens? Akasha gets killed. Okay? And that whole thing was a big ritual. We talked about this, I think, the last time. It was a big ritual with your girl. She was 22. The goddess Maya is the number 22. You know, that's the balance of the scale. You see, Akasha. Akasha became the first vampire when a god named what? Amel. A-M-E-L, which is a real entity that, what's her name got when she wrote the book, when she read the book, The Lost Cities of Africa. Lost Cities of Africa is also in a book called Sumerian Mythology. Amel, it said, now listen, it says that Amel, this is very key, Amel fuses, oh, that's good, thank you, you so kind. Amel, listen to this, Amel, which is what? Melanin. Amel, do you know that the word for melanin in Zoroastrianism, which is coming out of Zoroastrianism is Persian, which is coming out of Iraq and Iran. The word for melanin in Zoroastrianism is called drug. Where you get the word drug from. Now, Amel bites Akasha and goes what? Fuses into her bloodstream, thus making the first vampire. And makes her immortal. Amel is this energy or this entity that fuses into her bloodstream, this black substance. It makes her the first vampire. And that's her name is called Akasha. Now, going back, Crowley in this book of Thoth, the only time they ever mention anything on the ear in all these metaphysical books is Crowley's book of Thoth. In that chapter of Harpocrates, or the Fool, he says that the Horus lock is talking about a doorway or talking about something in the inner ear. It's called the Bhararandra chakra, which is the most highest vehicle of Akasha spirit. All right, now follow me here. So we know that one of the keys here is the ear. Hell, the ear is the only thing that's as close to the damn pineal gland. I said, that's why they never put it in none of these metaphysical books. Now, follow me on this. Now, this has to do with me and what happened to me in January. Met up with two sisters, medical nurse. They've been coming to my lecture for years. They work at Grady Memorial Hospital, which is like the butcher place down there. They haven't seen everything that happened. You go to Grady, man, you can get 1,000 horror stories. So they say, but when you get in a wreck down in Atlanta, they say you want to go to Grady because they so used to trauma. So you got a better chance of living by going where they be patching up niggas every month, and every week, every night. And you know what I'm saying? They're going way out with the white folks, and they sitting there and you bleeding to death, they don't know what to do. You see, this was every night for them. So I said, damn, y'all graded nurses. Y'all motherfucker guinea pig nurses. Y'all have seen everything. So these sisters came in, and the sister, she told me, I want a candle out your ear. I know what ear candling is. She said, I want a candle out your ear. I said, okay. So she started candle out my ear. She said, well, you know, we had a guy that was deaf. And we did 5 candles before we got him to hear. Well, I said, I'm not deaf in the ear, but I say this ear here, my right ear, which is called the left. If you're on the inside of the body, this would be the left ear. It's called the left hand path. I said, this ear I can hear, but I say it's all, you know when your ear stops, it just always just no noise your ass. I said, so she started counting out my ear. She got up to 4, she got up to 5. She said, well, hell, the person that was deaf had 5. I said, well, I can hear. She candled out 5 candles in the ear, and all of a sudden I realized something. My ear had been stopped up since the first part, January of 2001. And was stopped up to, I couldn't hardly stand it, and I got some little ear shit and got it so I could, you know, to tolerate it. But I didn't realize that when they candled out my ear, I had developed sonic hearing. I developed sonic hearing. Now, I'll say this again, Dawood made fun of this thing here, but it's all, but see, the thing about it is when you do the scholarship, and that's what, you see, I tell people it's good to give people scholarship and put them on the road to scholarship and put them on the road to these books, because every now and then, those same people will go back and study and they'll come back and bring you shit. So it's interesting, because I knew what was going on spiritually. Yeah, I knew what was going on spiritually. Okay, hold on, 1 minute. Hold on now. Hold on, because this is very important. All right. January of 2000, my stomach in a week got bigger and bigger. And by the end of the week, I had a little something in there kicking. It was like a little baby. I said, God damn it, I must be pregnant. That shit sound funny, you know. I said, I must be pregnant. Now it's interesting. It's always you gotta get scholarship. Because it's interesting because the same sister from Tallahassee that graduated from FAMU, her boyfriend studied, got a lot of the information I was giving and started studying, and he had found all kind of texts in India on how a male can get pregnant, but it's a spiritual pregnancy. In the part of Buddhism with the gut, it's a spiritual pregnancy. And so he found that, I said, always give a scholarship, because every now and then a motherfucker gonna read something and they can come back and help you. We're talking about being students in this thing. So the brother said, hey man, I heard you on the tape talking about you was pregnant. He said, I got some texts coming out of India where they talk about the Buddha gut and a person can be very spiritually pregnant. I said, yeah, because this shit was in me was kicking like a baby. And then one of the psychics say that baby gonna be born on a certain date. And it matured like in 2 weeks. But now what is it? It's nothing but your soul. You have a soul that's dormant. When you have the scarab with no wings on it, you ever see a scarab? That means your soul is asleep. You ever heard of the sleeping Buddha? Your soul is asleep. Whenever your soul wakes up, it goes through the same birthing process as a baby being born. That's why your soul is also called the baby of the egg. Harpocrates. Okay? Your soul is called the baby of the egg. Harpocrates. So I got pregnant. About 2 weeks after he was born, this ear got stopped up. It was like something or some type of entity didn't want this ear to get stopped up, to hear. Anyway, a year later, once I got the ear unplugged in January, I found out I developed sonic hearing. I could hear the cells in my damn feet. I could hear my heartbeat. I could hear all kind of little shit walking around in my body, all kind of little shit popping. Okay, now you don't have to throw me off on this one, because I got to tell you, this is the crux of the story. You can't present nothing and don't give the people what happened. So now you're just going to have to just bear with me on this one. Listen. Okay. Once she cleaned out my ear and I developed this sonic hearing, I became obsessed with music. Now I got 5,000 albums in my house. Kenwood amp. I had one system, lasted me from 1989 to November of 2001. And it finally blew. It was the best I had. Now look. So I went and got this Kenwood receiver. Now this goes down to the science of what's going on. I'm pumping this Kenwood receiver. I became obsessed with music. I put fucking 14 speakers. I put 12. I put 10 speakers in the room. Big speakers. I put 11 in the room, and I put 14. I shouldn't have done that, because that just blew my little shit right up. Now, but I was obsessed. Now, then the odyssey starts. Then the adventure starts. So, I got a significant other here, the sister here, right here in the second row. I call her up. Now, you know this is a black man priorities. You know, because, like I told you, I'm the brokest man in the Western Hemisphere. So, only money I got is if I got it in my front pocket. No nothing. If I call the sister, I say, and you know this is a black man, his priorities. Damn rent, damn lights, damn food. My levels and my music is gone. Every time a black man with a priority, I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Now I got this thing in my ear and I'm obsessed. I said, my music is gone. So sister said, don't worry about it, I'm gonna hook you up and send you. I said, you came into my life right at the right damn time to fund this damn ridiculous odyssey. So I said, I don't know. I said, my music gone. And I said, you know, damn rent, damn all that. You know how black people are. It's about the radio. So she came, she wired me some doggone money. Now, I go to pick up me a system. One brother said, man, you got enough money, let's go to Circuit City, man, get you something new. I go to Circuit City, I buy a system. Take it home, it don't have no outlet for phono, which is the turntable. I take it back and get an outlet for phono. Take it home, it don't have an outlet for tape 2 monitor. And tape 2 monitor is where you hook up your equalizer. I said, wait a minute, hold on. I said, damn, I search in there. I can't find nothing that's brand new with these options. They're taking them off. The guy said, well, yeah, well, he said in about a year they're going to take that off. I said, damn, you can't hook up no equalizer. He said, well, they got one last equalizer that Techniques put out. Now, this is, let me show you what time it is. This has a lot, this has everything to do with Melanin. He said, they got one equalizer that Techniques put out. And he said, after this year, they're going to take that off the market. I said, okay then. I see now that the pawn shops is going to be my best friend on this one. All right. So it takes me about a week to get some stuff. So this is what happened. I find a Sony receiver. It's like a 99. It's got phono and it's got tape 2. Let me show you the science on this. It's got phono and it's got tape 2. I plug it up, plug in the doggone equalizer. I got 14 speakers I gotta push now, shit. So, I plug in the equalizer, and my music sounds funny. Come to find out what it is this. The new systems, everything that they want you to hear is already preset. So, it don't matter what equipment you get, it's still gonna come out with a preset sound. Because the key here is, in the new receivers, is, and let me tell you what CD technology is. It's a hologram made for not to enter the inner ear melanin. Now, I want you to hear what I'm saying here. Since 1990, you've been hearing music, but not necessarily hearing music. Talking to some white boy to work at this music place, guy in his 50s. He said, man, when the CD came out, he said, I went and took all my damn Miles Davis albums and brought them into this store to sell them, because they sell used LPs. He said, I went out and I got a whole Miles Davis collection on CD. I'm gonna show you how you're gonna get around all this in a few minutes. On CD. He said, wait, something ain't right, something's not right. There's something missing. And he went and he read in one of the CD packs that said that we have taken out several octaves that used to be in the original music. So because it's an EQ'd sound and it's a hologram, you hear music, but you don't really hear music. Another white guy kept saying, you know, I have to keep turning the CD up. He said, something about the digital, I'm not getting what I'm supposed to get. Now, since 1990, since they phased out the LPs, they have designed the CDs so that it goes in the ear and you can hear music, but you're not hearing music. It does not reach the inner ear melanin. Okay. Found out if you got a graphic equalizer and you can put your hands on several levels, you can still override the damn CDs. So they got to phase out the equalizer. Now for the people that's going to all CD technology, I'm just trying to say, now first thing you need to do, this is for the melanin people. Go out, go to some pawn shop and go something to find you some turntables, snatch them up. Because when the turntables went out in 1990, you can get turntables at pawn shops and at Goodwill stores for $2. Only thing you had to do is find a needle. And some of them, you just go and buy a new cartridge. And so they sell an Audio Techniques cartridge right ready to go in Circuit City. Now this is the key. Whatever you do, go out and buy you a real good turntable. Don't get nothing cheap. Because you can find the real deal turntables. Now, and that's for one thing. Another thing here is if you got CDs, because you got to go buy albums, go get you, anytime you find you a graphic equalizer in these pawn shops or whatever, buy the graphic equalizer. Now, the key here is, I found out something. Now I have now, because the sister died, by the help of the sister, there is the domestic model, Sony, Pioneer, Kenwood, you see what I'm saying? Kenwood, those are your domestic models. Then you got what is called high-end stuff. I remember this in the 70s. People used to go in the army. They said, we go over the army, we get some stereo systems we can't find in the United States. Remember now, they didn't phase out the LPs in 1990. They tried to do that shit in Europe. The Europeans said, we ain't buying that shit. So they had to still get LPs. Now, listen. There's the high-end models. You got your Sony, your Pioneer, your Kenwood, and all of that. The stuff that you know. Then you got high-end stuff, like Carmen Harden. Grundy. Yamaha. Yes, so a lot of the, and then there's one which is the highest thing out there is this thing called a carver. It's called a carver. It costs $1,400. And lo and behold, I found one for $5. Well, that's $5.50. Now, let me show you the deal is. It's called a carver, like George Washington Carver. Okay. Now, I put this thing on and put it on with the EQ, because I found one with the EQ tape. Because remember now, you gotta get tape 2 monitor, not just tape 1. You gotta have either phono and tape 2 monitor. Now, if you got CDs, and you're only playing CDs, you still gotta have tape 2 monitor because you got to find your equalizer. And what you gotta do is the more levels you get on the equalizer is key. This is essential for melanin. I'm getting ready to get off and I'm going to explain this to you. You got to get that tape 2 monitor. I got this carver and the damn CDs sound just like the LP. But it's interesting. I can turn this thing up, but with that, when I put that turntable on and it hit a certain note or something, I have a certain, his sound to come out of the person's voice, it's got a shut-off valve in the carver. It'll shut down. It'll click off. And I'm like, damn, this turntable here will click it off because the turntable is a real recording. You see what I'm saying? Now, the point I'm trying to make here is, they make sure, now my point here is this here, if the music does not get to inner ear melanin, as far as the systems that they make and the CDs, that means anything anything after 1990, post 1990, I'm talking about this which has been produced, ain't no good. You got to go late 80s on back, which is all the classical shit anyway. If you got the 70s, you got it. You know what I'm saying? The 60s or whatever, you got it. Because all the stuff that is produced with the rap stuff is nothing but the 70s, modified, pasteurized, homogenized anyway, called samples. You see what I'm saying? So, what I'm saying here is this. With this in mind, you have to go back to your classics, but you have to pay attention. Any of the stuff that you get now, any of the stuff that you get, if you do have, if you can get into this high-end stuff, if you can get any system you can get from either the pawn shop, if you can't get FOMO, if you're just running CDs, you still got to get tape to monitor, because you got to hook it up with an equalizer. That is the way you're going to get the actual melanin aspect. Because now what's happening, let me explain what's going on here so you'll know what's going on here. Look. In the spring of this year, off the coast of Florida, they announced about this big black water off the coast of Florida. Anybody heard about this thing? Raise your hand. And off the coast of Florida, they got this mysterious black water. This mysterious black water off the coast of Florida, it's about 700 miles long. They didn't care, but I know how, it's about 700 miles long. And they're telling people they don't know what the shit is. You go on the internet, now they had a couple things on the internet early on, and then all of a sudden they started shutting people out. You can't go with this particular information. This is a book called Arthur 2000. It's not a, this is just a little cheap, this is a magazine that comes out of Atlanta. It's free. You know, they pick these things up. It's a free magazine, a little metaphysical thing. In here they're talking about the black waters, mysterious black waters off the coast of Florida. Now, the reason why the music is important, because as you know, since 1998, you had Discover magazine, which I showed, talked about this black hole. I've been talking about this for the last 4 years. About this black hole in the center of our galaxy. 1998, Discover magazine. November 1998. Sister Fanny sent me one from 2001. It just so happened that during the same time of 2001, Astronomy magazine had out one. Was it Astronomy magazine? Astronomy had one talking about looking inside of the black hole, which came out around the same time, 9/11, because the movie, they said October, but remember, magazines come out a month early. So I have it in here, October 2001. They're talking about face-to-face with the black hole, because we slipped within this mysterious black hole on May the 22nd of 2001. Then, the same year, June 25th, Time Magazine, 2001, How the Universe Will End, and they talk about this particular black hole. All right. July 2002, Discover magazine again is talking about the same black hole. Then all of a sudden, this is out in space. All of a sudden, this mysterious black water shows up off the coast of Florida. What they're not telling people here is that this black water is not, they just told the people about the coast of Florida. This black water is all over the world. They just only told the people about the coast of Florida. During the same time, this black water, about a year ago, white folks, and it was just interesting because it was rich white folks in Texas and all over the United States started having this mold in their house. You heard about this thing? The house come down with this mold and they got to move out. Mold has some of the same type of flow as melanin. You see, as melanin. Mold is a bacteria. A lot of times it comes about when stuff is putrefied. Melanin in alchemy is a substance that has something to do with something that is putrefied or left behind. As the Egyptians say, at Alvin Boyd King books, Lost Lights, there was a whole bunch of entities that used to live prior to human race, and when they went to sleep, we appeared. And they had this psychosexual substance called melanin, which is called the shadow, which is something left behind. Well, mold is one of the same properties as far as something that is left behind, or something that is mutated, or something that has crystallized. See, sometimes mold, anything that change is good, because chaos is matter where change is supreme, and chaos is the key to melanin. Now, the mold showed up, you got a black hole that showed up, but one of the keys is this here. The doorway to the temple, you got a candle out your ears, but the doorway to the temple, as above, so below. If you see the black hole out there on the coast of Florida, and they got them around the world, that means that there's some stuff that's inside of you that is already opened up. But guess what? Go get the movie, because they always put it from your car. Go get the movie Ghostbusters 2, when they had this mysterious goo. They made it pink. But what they do when they put it on some music and put it on the toaster, and the toaster started jumping whenever they put music to it. Well, that's the same thing about the whole melanin aspect. So if there's some stuff off of Florida that we know of in this Western Hemisphere, and you have mold, microscopic organisms, then in actuality, there's some things that's also going on when it comes to the inner ear melanin. And so this particular portion of the lecture is talking about melanin and music. But you got to go back and get the classics, because the music industry made sure that the stuff that came out from 1990 on was not based off of the muse. Or it has repetition in it, but it's not based off of the muse. That's why you got to go back to the stuff where the muse was active. The muse is what created it. And the muse is nothing but melanin put to scale. And some of the most advanced music is funk. Any advanced dance music. Any advanced dance music. Give me one last thing. We know that James Brown is basically the architect of what we call modern funk music. Because stands the reason why when the rappers came out, and in their particular inception of rap music, 98% of his stuff was sampled. Now, few other people around that time, Junior Walker and All Stars, straight up advanced origins of funk music. People don't know that. Get some Junior Walker, you hear what I'm talking about. But the funk music that we get with a heavy bass line, although James Brown is the architect of the dance music at that particular time, it just took different phase. From the jump jazz of Count Basie, compared to Duke Ellington was sophisticated. Count Basie was like the Bootsy Collins, compared to Duke Ellington, which was like the Maurice White. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So, in the 60s, you have the architect of the dance music is James Brown, but the bass line that you have from the 70s was invented by Larry Graham of Graham Central Station, later on of the Sly and the Family Stone, with the song "Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself." This was the first time you had that type of thing, and even Bootsy and them said we would like to take credit for it, but it was Larry Graham and Sly and the Family Stone. That's why you got to go get the one. It might not sound like nothing to most people that's young, but you got to get the movie, the album "A Riot Is Going On." Sly and the Family Stone's got "Family Affair" on it, "Running Away," "You Caught Me Smiling." It's one of the precursors to funk music in the 70s. And I was like, man, I knew they had to be high as hell when they made this damn album. Because damn, Sly just get on there and pick up a damn guitar and just start plucking. Like he in the first grade, but it's genius. But the point I'm trying to make here is, this is very, and then you go on into George Clinton and all that type of thing after they really modified it and all this type of stuff. But any kind of 70s funk, any kind of advanced dance music is very key. But all music, the muse, all that is quintessential when you're dealing with the actual melanin. Now, why are you saying? You say, I've been listening to music all the time now. What does this have to do with things now? Well, apparently, if you hadn't heard inner ear melanin music since 1990, what will happen if you go and if you have a CD, go get a graphic equalizer Now, because what it is, they got equalizers now built into the new systems, but they're already preset to what they want you to have. So you got to get you an equalizer. If you're dealing with CDs, get you a graphic equalizer. You can get them at the pawn shop. They cost $30, $40 all day. Go to Goodwill, you might find one for 20. But if you still got some LPs, get your turntable and get your equalizer. And I'm telling you to listen to your classics now. You see what I'm saying? Outside of the tailored manufactured era of where they manufacture this stuff, not to go to the inner ear melanin. But you have to get you a graphic equalizer to do it. A couple other things you need to do. We'll get into that later on, but I just want to bring that to you. I want to bring that to you. But also, too, they had to kill the archetypal male energy. Now, one thing about the rap music, it does not coincide with the male and female thing. You see what I'm saying? It's guys hanging in gangs. You see what I'm saying? And even if they got the girls around shaking their booty, it's never a social interaction on a personal level. They're only seen as objects. And now as a result, you go to any major college campuses and you will see this thing. You will see guys on one side of the street, black guys on one side of the street, hanging out with themselves, and you will see girls on the other side of the street. And the guys always got on too much clothes, and the girls hardly got on none. But they never coincide and intermingle. Now, when I was in college, our rites of passage was, you're okay, brother, but you ain't getting none. So you're a social pariah. Now, that might sound messed up, but that's just the way it was. You see what I'm saying? Our whole manhood was based on how we interacted with them women. Like I said, you know, I say, man, I really like you, man. You're a cool brother. Guy said, yeah, but he ain't getting none. People, basically, that was your rites of passage. So he ain't gonna hit a lick out of a damn snake. That nigga scared of booty. You hear this thing here. But it was a rites of passage and stuff because the simple fact, it was the Osirian energy on how you coincide, even on a sexual level or even on a passionate level with your woman. But see, they came in and they designed this thing now, whereas this thing is segregated. The brothers got on too much clothes and they only hang around the brothers. You see, and the sisters hang around the sisters, but the sisters only hang around the sisters talking about they want to get with them brothers. Now, the sister still ain't stupid now. She still want to get with the brother. It's just that it's socialized this way. So obviously they had to come in and they had to do something to separate it and butcher up some shit. You see what I'm saying? So there's no way you get a Frankie Beverly and Mays today. You understand what I'm saying? No way you get an Isaac Hayes. Get some damn Isaac Hayes. And listen to that damn I stand accused again. Now. And then you'll understand what I'm talking about here. We're talking about there's archetypes that's already infused into our classical music. I don't like the word oldies. No, classical punk. Classical R&B. There's archetypes infused in our classical music, I'm getting ready to get right now, that you need to listen to now. Under the aspects of this new stuff, or sip on you some alcohol, or whatever. You see what I'm saying? And get into the zone and do that too. You see, because remember, most fundamental religions were made to shut down the muse. So anything that they are against, you need to take a second look at. Like I said, brothers say sex outside of procreation, that should be something you need to take a look at. Any kind of stimulant that you don't abuse, take a look at it and take you a chug on some stuff. Because that's fundamentally African. That's Moors that brought that up into Europe and taught the European how to distill alcohol. We'll get into that in a few minutes or whatever later on. But any kind of thing that gets you any type of alternative reality, we're not talking about the people on the street. We're not talking about the people that's got all the drug addiction. We're talking about you up in here. You want to learn about melanin? You want to learn about the muse? That's spiritos and alternative levels of awareness is also quintessential to the muse or quintessential to melanin. So then if anything that floats your boat to get you a little tipsy and jam that particular music, that's what's going to do it. We'll go into some other stuff later on, but thank you very much. And I'm always trying to jam it in an hour or so. Okay.
break for lunch. No question and answer. We're gonna.
You want a question and answer?
Yeah. Huh?
No, you can't do that.
What? We need question and answer. Just 15 minutes. Okay. Let me see this.
Give me just 10 minutes for question and answer. I mean, it's more than fitting. I mean, the question and answer is for you, not me. So, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Okay, brother. That's gonna interfere with the question and answer. Okay. Now, give me what's that? Okay.
Well, I spent 13 months in Vietnam. And it made me reflect back to childhood and gospel music, came up in the church, so forth and so on.
Right.
And then studying a little history, we understood when we were in the field, 3 levels here, right? We sang to keep the suffering down.
Exactly.
Okay? And we developed music many times to heal. Right?
Yeah.
I was in Vietnam, the entire language. Now, it's different than, not all Asians are different. Okay, we can understand.
You even got your black ones over there.
That's what I'm talking about, because we're real close to Laos and Cambodia, and that was black.
Yeah.
And we got into that. The whole language was what we call sing-song. You understand what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to study it a little bit now, but it wasn't talking, it was singing. Like, oh, the sounds. And different octaves and different levels of the sound of the same thing meant different situations. And I'm trying to study a little bit on that now, that if we go back into a real heavyweight study of, I'm going to ask you to elaborate on this, of the Church of God in Christ. Okay, the sanctified church. That I found that when they hit certain octaves, sounds, it would send the women into a cataclysmic state. That we call, what was that they call it? Tongues.
Yeah, so I got you exactly. It's interesting here because Brother Clemson Brown out of New York, the videographer for years, even dealing with everybody has a part of when they're growing up, certain sociological aspect to deal with how we learn more about ourselves. And he said, you know, we didn't have a whole lot of money. He said, and even John Hemmitt said how you can get a woman for $1 or something. He said, you damn sure don't make women like that no more. But, you know, $1, you'll put on your suit of clothes, as they call it. But he said, we didn't have a whole lot of money. He said, but them guys used to stand there, they used to sing to them women. We used to sing. That's right. We didn't have a lot of things, but, you know, even Mr. Price said, you know, how the brother who can sing, get all the food. You see what I'm saying? So, that's a fundamental part, and even when they talk about most ancient languages, what they said, the even European, when you talk about English being a bastardized language, they was even talking about even French. Even the French look down on the English language because it doesn't come with the several octaves and the motif of an ancient language like your Arabic, which you see what I'm saying, which is a song type thing, which we know comes from ancient Kush. Naturally it would be your Kemetic languages. And any type of language from the ancient time, you're also talking about a mantra is the word. Those particular words, even you can get it in the Arab thing where they talk about alhamdulillah, 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 and all this, and they call it the wazifa, which is a mantra that open up certain chakras in the body. All the way into India. These are, it's fusing with the muse. So I would agree automatically. You and then he had again.
Yes,
go ahead.
thank you very excellent, Brother Hemmitt. In the book by Manly P. Hall, I'm trying to call the one, the Secret Teachers book.
Secret Teachers of all ages?
Man, Grand Symbol of the Universe.
Man, Grand Symbol, yeah. So that's still in print, yeah.
He has a section on the pineal gland, and he talks about the finger at the tip of the pineal gland that vibrates at a high rate. And I was just, but again, what I seldom hear, what you've made known, is not only the vibration of the inner ear cilia that line the inner ear, but it is done in an octave, in a rhythmical fashion that causes the jumping between the dimensions and going into so-called deep trance state.
There you go.
And then one other thing, this is just a question. I'm doing some work and I ran into an article that made reference to the early human types, the Australopithecus type, and raising the question about why we were always able to stand upright and the upright posture. And it raised a question about it was done because of these semicircular canals, the one that had a sense of balance. But it did not go into the question of sound. So a question comes, did we stand upright to hear the mating calls between sisters and brothers?
Well, you know what's interesting? Because now it's interesting because I also mentioned alcohol, and I said that it had a lot to do with alternative states of being before the overindulgence comes. That's the hangover. But what does alcohol do? One of the keys in this is very scientific. So one of the keys in one of the studies when they was dealing with LSD, remember now the government came and shut it down, was they said it blocked out the rational portions of the mind to allow the melatonin to work. Okay, when they tell you even when you get drunk, what's the first thing you do? You lose your balance. Those coils get out of correct or whatever. The point I'm trying to make here, there's a connection to vibration again. And then the interesting, nobody ever thought about this, but I thought about this in 1996. Looking at pictures of the pineal gland, isn't it funny that the clitoris looks damn near the same? You see what I'm saying? Here goes the vibration thing again also. You see? So, I would agree when you're saying about the mating calls and all that. I would say all that is connected. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to get into later on is I even found some stuff, Rudolf Steiner, which we talked about before about the whole Rudolf Steiner thing, where even the pineal gland we get into was also a fertility organ in the ancient particular person, where they actually, outside of mating with the vaginal and the penis, they also knew how to do this thing based on the sensations of the pineal gland. Okay, give me two more questions and we out. There's two more.
So our time is really up, brother.
Okay.
Our time is really up. We really got to stop
Okay.
somewhere.
All right.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Let's give brother a hand.
I know.
And I really hate doing that.
Just come on in. The door will still be open though.
Okay, it's on you, Bobby.
It's on me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm on?
Yeah, you're on.
Okay, this is the tutorial part of the lecture as far as the classroom. I want to get into a few things that's very important at this particular time. Also, to add light to what I was saying, there was a movie that came out with all this in the movie on the music thing that I was talking about recently. And the name of the movie is called Josie and the Pussycats. It was the cartoon that used to come out years ago. Anyway, they put the movie came out August of 2001, right before 9/11. Right before 9/11, the movie came out. The thing here is they would put it in one of these little teen crazy movies. That's to throw people off. That's to throw people off. In this movie, they talk about the music industry and how there's subliminal seduction that is inside of the actual music. They go into all of this in the actual movie. In the actual movie. That's one for the records. It's just like they got two movies out now on the Atlanta child murders. One that came out in 1999 or 2000 called Red Ink. Real cheaply done movie, but that's also to throw you off. It's called Red Ink, and it's talking about the Atlanta child murders. I was fortunate enough to meet one of the mothers of the Atlanta child murders back in 1996, and she was telling me that when she told me that in 1981 when it was going down, they came and got her and took her to her daughter, and her daughter was still alive. But when they took her to the daughter, they said that when they took it to the daughter, they said that she looked like she was 70 years old. It was interesting because in this movie, Red Ink, they document that where the guy makes mention that he saw one of the children, although it was dead, it looked like it was 70 years old. You see. So they do that. Now they got a new one out with Gregory Hines that just came out this past summer, and it's on cable. I know it's playing on cable. And there's another movie on the whole amount of child murders, going into the conspiratorial aspect of that. I want to say that now because there's a lot of things that is coming at this particular time. I want to make this particular statement. I just got this broadband cable, which they got cable now that is comparable to the satellite dish. Satellite dish get over 200 channels. So AT&T broadband brought out a cable network, get over 203 channels. It's digital cable. So anyway, I was clicking through this particular cable when I got it. I done had it since May. And I noticed that there was not one positive image on that screen for black people. Now, this is a psychological aspect where we're not aware of now. We know different black people in different walks of life. We know black people with $50,000 jobs, $100,000 jobs, and our Mercedes-Benz. But people in Switzerland, people in Tanzania, people all over the world, they don't know that. Their only perception is going to be that which they see on the TV. Now, it was interesting because I was coming from an election and was on the plane with a guy from Kenya. And this guy had never been in the United States in his life. And the first thing he started asking me is about, why are you all on drugs? Well, I'm like, well, first of all, man, we are 40 million plus. We have a history of 300 years here, and we got a history of black upward mobility since 1865, even before that. I said, and we hold every job there is in the world, except president and vice president of this country. And I said, and we have you come on in, and we have almost 130 years of intellectual, collegiate experience. And he was like, what? He was baffled. It was almost like me telling him a fairy tale of some people in another life. So all of the so-called advancement of black people, they don't get it. You know, only thing he knew was black people was here, they was on drugs. Guy from Kenya. You see. So he knew nothing about, and I said, this is interesting here because the psychological conditioning around the world, what we don't realize when we see a pathetic character on TV, we now go past because we see so much upward mobility in the black community. So it don't register with us. So we don't understand that the concept here is to destroy us worldwide on a whole other level than what we think of. And because we don't put it together, you see what I'm saying? Because we're living our lives and stuff, and we don't put this thing together, those people in Switzerland, Russia, Africa, Australia, they only see the pathetic characters that they got, that they have. I want to say that because the simple fact, I'm trying to find out, what is it that people constantly still attack us? Let me give you an example. You got a TV show that came on HBO called The Wire. The actual show is filmed in Atlanta in a closed down project. Then you got the show that's Oz, which was a jail show. And in so many words, these shows, they're showing still the drug trade. They don't even, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know about here, but in places like Atlanta and places around the country, you know, they have single-handedly wiped out most of the drugs. They just got a few little derelicts of people that they just maintain. That's when they came out with this $5 rock. Not because remember now, one was got people was hooked. One smoked and they was hooked on this thing during the late 80s and early 90s. Then they came out with a $5 rock just to maintain the little bit of status quo derelicts because the majority of the people are locked up. So this whole aspect of this wire, this drug trade, you see what I'm saying, is to keep a certain propaganda going around the world. And I asked this question, why would a people, now we know We're at our lowest point when it comes to black people, when it comes to consciousness. You might meet a person with some common sense one day. It might be 3 months before you meet somebody else that has any type of consciousness whatsoever if you move outside of your circle. Some conscious people, they build a few people around them and build a little circle around them of black consciousness or somebody that's aware. And we can be fooled in thinking that the whole world is doing this, black people are on the rise and consciousness is growing. That's because we haven't looked outside of our environment to see what's going on. But on the other hand, outside of that environment, if you just go to the general population or the masses, you might meet a person every 2 months that got some damn common sense. And I'm not talking about no underclass, because they for all intents and purposes, in most of the country, they are wiped out. We're talking about the so-called black, upward mobile person with nothing on their mind. So my point here, what I'm saying here is, if the white boy has conquered the last 6, 7 years where he's basically wiped out this resurgence of consciousness with the other people that's getting it, because most of the people I lecture to are people that's already made up in their mind that they want to know something new. The numbers of new people have dwindled within the last 10 years compared to what it was in the late 80s and early 90s when you start having this resurgence. Now you're not getting, only thing you're getting now is people that want to learn much more advanced things, but you don't get a whole influx of new people. So my point here is why would a people still vilify us when there's no need to? Our people don't want nothing but a car, automobile, VCR, whatever type thing they got. You know what I'm saying? They don't care nothing, you know what I'm saying? They're not trying to raise up against an oppressor. End of story. So why keep the pressure on when you have won the war? And that is because it's a spiritual war. And I want to try to understand that they have to do it, and there's a spiritual jealousy. And let me explain this to you. Based on ancient texts, we are the people that is slated to rise up. Now don't get disenfranchised and get discouraged because the numbers are low, because even in the Bible they tell you, they always say look at the remnant. It's always the remnant. And because you can use even the biblical stuff, because remember now, those are ancient fragments that came from other things. See, a lot of times they say go into the scriptures, you can find what you want, and not go by the scriptures based on somebody's interpretation. But they talk about the remnant. So if the numbers are low, that's because it's prophesied that it would be low. They said it will go on until even the elect will be challenged. You see, and I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about in most materials, the Hermetic text, the Book of Enoch, even down to the Mahabharata in India. They talk about these things that will only be a small remnant. You see, that's the whole concept of David and Goliath. He takes a small pebble and he kills the giant. Well, the giant is symbolic of something on a greater civilization, or civilized level, or greater empire. You see what I'm saying? And it can even go on down to the metaphysical thing, because the stone, the pebble and the stone is also known as the philosopher's stone, which is also known as the third eye. You see, as the third eye. It even goes down to say that even Shiva, which is the East Indian form of Christ or Horus, will destroy the earth with his third eye. You see, with his third eye. In a book called Shiva the Erotic Ascetic by Wendy O'Flaherty, and another book she did called, she did several books, but this is called Shiva Erotic Ascetic. Comes out of Oxford, England. Although she's an American, the book you got to get it from Oxford Press. And they always talk about it's whatever it is, it's going to be something that is so minute to the empire. So that's what it'll bring it down. Now they also always say in this, because we need to turn more to the ancient mythology and weave this stuff in to try to get a picture of what's going on. Get out of more of the theology and go into more of the mythology. And every single system has this mythological part. These are stories that correspond around the world that go beyond the whole cultural biases of customs and things like that. So we need to get out of those particular things. Let me give you an example. You have different mythologies. Different mythologies. One of the mythologies, it says that whenever this empire is overthrown, it is always overthrown when the ruling power sees its subjects at such a despicable level to their arrogance. You see what I'm saying? Succeeds them. They cannot, they're so arrogant, they're so confident, until the confidence will be their underdoing, or they'll be their overdoing. You see, the confidence. That's why even to this day, we see these instances whenever you might know a certain thing and white people look at you in awe, because they just can't believe that you would know something like this. So now, the reason why I'm saying that, because if it looks grim, that's the time when all the ancient scriptures say the time when it's time for the overthrow. When it looks like it's disenfranchised, when it is no more help. You see what I'm saying? Whereas you look at black people in a deplorable state in the aspect, and I know you got to, because it's ridiculous, just by the potential and not even utilizing it. So when you're talking about that now, that means in the scriptures or in the ancient mythos, I like to call it. The mythos, they talk about that as the actual time. I'm saying this to say one thing. There's a secret society, like Brother Walter Williams has done research and find out that when you have, when it comes to the European Jews, there's a secret society among them that has an invention of ancient Israel. There's a new book out, came out in '97, The Invention of Ancient Israel, where they try to take the entire life to fit it to coincide with certain scriptures that was written for another people. In this case, we are those people. You see, we are those particular people. So when people ask the question, did the Holocaust happen? Yes, the Holocaust did happen. But the Holocaust was designed to happen. It was a part of the scheme and the design for Israel in the first place. I'm not trying to get on Israel. I'm trying to show you why is it there's people still kicking you when you're down. And it is based on, they know, just like the group out in 2000 was a group that came out and said that the Africans in America are the heirs to the earth. White group, totally white. As well as the guy, David Hetzel. The guy, David Hetzel, wrote a book called The Zealotar. The Zealotar. And in that particular book, he said that our only hope, he died in 1997, but before he died, in his notes, and it's a 200-300 page book, and in his notes he said our only hope is some type of black Masonic group. He didn't realize that the Masonic group that it was talking about, we call Prince Hall or whatever, is just a social club, but he was trying to give the people, when he was talking about a black Masonic group, he was talking about the group of people that was privy to this information and accessed this information over the last, over the last 10, 15 years. This resurgence of the black consciousness. He was saying that we was the only hope. Steve Coakley talks about a guy, I think it might be the guy Quigley. He talks about the guy Carol Quigley that said that our only hope, the only thing that can defeat this world power or this world regime or this oligarchy or evilarchy that they call this secret society that actually runs the world, the only people that can defeat that is the urban black person in America. You see what I'm saying? So my point here is, the people that is trying to fake themselves as being these world sufferers, this is like even Johnny Cochran told when the O.J. Simpson trial came about. And they asked him why did he make a comparison to a racist over here to Adolf Hitler. And he turned around and said, are you crazy? The European Jews ain't got no doggone corner, no market on no suffering. Are you crazy? Adolf Hitler, 6 years, can't even get in the first page of what we went through. But the point about it here is you're talking about a people that have to want to corner the market on suffering so that they can somehow systematically work themselves into pages in the annals of history to try to somewhat line up with these scriptures that doesn't apply to them. We know that they were converted in Spain. It has nothing to do with the Egypto-Hebraic line of things. And we talk about groups that came out of Africa. The point I'm trying to make here is you have a people that's systematically trying to line themselves up to be the people prophesized, to be the people that get the prize. But my point here is, just as the people that have to systematically lie and line themselves up as these so-called quote-unquote chosen people, if it's a consensus that is agreed upon, that means that they have to know of the real people. And we are the only ones that's privy to this particular information that can be the real people. As a matter of fact, before 1945, the only people that even lined up with the biblical book of Psalms and stuff where they talk about suffering people, and even Exodus and all of that type of stuff, was the Africans in the annals of slavery, the Africans in the diaspora. So my point here is they still got to keep the grind going because there's a jealousy, and they also know that the time is drawing near. Now let me give you an example of what I mean. There's a movie came out called Hearts of Atlantis. There's a couple of movies that give you the history of this. Movie came out, it's on cable now, it's on HBO, it's showing it, but you can also rent it. Hearts, like your heart. Hearts of Atlantis. What's the guy's name on it? Anthony Hopkins is the guy that's starring in that. He's in a lot of movies. Anthony Hopkins. And in the movie, did you ever see it? Mm-hmm. In the movie, it's talking about a guy in the 1950s that's running from some government officials because he's a psychic. And the story goes that government officials would actually sequester or actually abduct psychics from around the country to use as psychic spies. Some people thought it was for war, but it was for everything that goes on in the spiritual realm that they could get hold to. There's another movie called The Fury with Kirk Douglas documenting this. There's several others. But the key here is, they say that the righteous, in biblical terms, always were the last to know anything about themselves, and the people of the devil, in biblical terms, knew more about when the righteous was going to rise before the righteous did. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. In biblical terms, when we just talking about this, the earthly good and evil against the people that plot against him, and the Holocaust bringers. So these people at this particular time, they know. And remember now in 1996, they busted the government because the government had there was something like $10 million that just went into American revised history alone. They was like, wait a minute, how much history is history? How much can you spend on the budget a year on American history? So they had a $10 million budget to make sure that they preserved American history. But these were ghost budgets because up under that, these were budgets that was paying off different people in the psychic element. You see what I'm saying? In the psychic element. You see, so it was interesting here because in this particular aspect, we know that they have literally hundreds of people, and what they do is they sit in rooms and they read every article, every science fiction novel, every horror novel, any books that deal on the mystical aspect, any new research in religion, philosophy, they got entire divisions of the government, and that's all they do. From the people that research the printed word to psychics. So they know when something is going on, when there's something that is a break that's about to happen. And you best believe when the building fell down last year in New York City, it was major because they know that this is the apex of what's getting ready to go down. Even if you think sometimes you shake your head and say, man, I just don't know. I don't know how we're going to get out of this. They know. Just watch them. Now this thing with Iraq, I'm going to give you another version of it in a few minutes at the end of this to try to understand what's going on the melanin level. It's all related because there's something else behind that And you must understand that. You must understand that. We know that Saddam Hussein works for the American government. So for the mere fact that he's a government operative that worked for the American government, for the mere fact that they're trying to go up in there, is because there's something else. So always remember, there's always something spiritual from behind the way they move. Because remember now, the American government is a ghost government. There's people in the secret society who study the occult that will give one aspect that they need to do and create another one as a diversionary tactic. You got to understand, this is real key right now, but I'm going to drop some stuff on you in a few minutes so that you'll understand what's really going on. But I want to get through a couple of things right now. Number one, it's not by accident that the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which is the oldest book in the world, the Papyrus of Ani, the judgment scenes of that Egyptian Book of the Dead is floating around the United States of America. It's now it was in Kansas City, which I went by default, by mistake, and ended up in the room with the judgment scene. I'm not talking about a judgment scene. I'm talking about the oldest book in the world, the judgment scene with Osiris on it, on the throne, which the basic judgment scenes and different things in world mythology around the world is based off of. It is not by accident that was in the British Museum that the British Museum somehow in 2001, the millennium, not 2000 is not the millennium, 2001 was the millennium, got that thing off of British soil. Now you know, they had last week, they had an entire 2-hour-long special on biography television on the curse of King Tut's mummy. Now we know that these things have something that's interesting because the King Tut mummy toured the United States in 1979. At that time, the mayor in Atlanta was Maynard Jackson. He would not let it come to Atlanta. Then Ramesses remains in his whole dynastic treasures toured the United States in 1988. It went to Charlotte, but it did not come to Atlanta. The reason why is because Maynard Jackson, which is, I think he was the first black mayor of a major city. There was a reason why he was the first black mayor of a major city. I think, what, 1972, something like that? I mean, when what's the name? Coleman Young get elected? Like mid-70s, like 74, 75? Huh?
72.
72. What's the name got elected right before he did? So they always do things Masonically. And the reason why is because his grandfather was a guy by the name of John Wesley Dobbs. John Wesley Dobbs is a Masonic figure in Atlanta. Now let me show you how white people think. They have your Martin Luther King Boulevard, which is the major Martin Luther King Boulevard, which all your other Martin Luther King streets are named after. And I'm trying to figure out, how can you have places that's 2% black with a Martin Luther King Drive? I mean, some things just don't seem right. That seems like it's a ritual going on. You know what I'm saying? They got a Martin Luther King Drive in Denver. You know what I'm saying? And although that might be nice to some people, I find that kind of odd. That white people would just automatically just, rate the street and it's 2% black. You know what I'm saying? We must think about these things. But the main street that the Martin Luther King, and you heard this in my lecture before, that the Martin Luther King street that all the other streets is named after is the one in Atlanta. Why is it that that street starts in the Confederate graveyard? And we need to find out, what is it that the Confederacy would honor a person this much to start their street within the Confederate graveyard? Because these are rituals that are done. But the street, that's a bad area. Then there's a ritzy part of town where you have the tallest hotel in the world, the Western Peachtree, which the same guy, John Portman, built the Western Peachtree in Atlanta. And then he built the Renaissance Center here, same architect. And it was this building that actually made Atlanta an international city. When they built, it was a regular southern town, but when they built that building, that tall round hotel, they've since then gone past that. with pyramids, obelisks, and temples, which is a papyrus in the British Museum that talks about how you build a city called Sirius architecture on pyramids, obelisks, and temples. Repeated in Murray Holt's book, Ancient Egypt, the Sirius Connection. Is in that particular book. She repeated that article. It's in the British Museum on Syriac architecture. It's got a lot of that now, but at that particular time, that was the main building. The point is, where that building is our high end of town. This John Wesley Dobbs Street runs there. In the middle of the ritzy elite part of town. That's because the story is, let's make a long story short, John Wesley Dobbs was a Mason. They got a book called The Duncan's Ritual Complete, which is the Duncan's Ritual that they use. At this particular time, that's the white Masonic book. I think they don't even use that now. Well, I know they don't use it now because a portion of them now use something else, and I explain this. When they had the Duncan's Ritual Complete, blacks were not allowed to use it. So this guy named John Wesley Dobbs went in and got the Duncan's Ritual Complete and went in and made him the Dobbs Manual. And this is the one that Southern Masons, black Masons, used for about 40, 50 years. You see. After they, in the 70s, when the white man let them get the Duncan's Ritual Complete, they abandoned the Dobbs. Guess what? The white Masons picked the Dobbs up, and now they use the Dobbs. And deified this white Mason, this black brother. And deified him, gave him a street down on the high end of town. But going back, he's the grandfather of Maynard Jackson. So when it was time for the King Tut's exhibit to come to Atlanta, Maynard Jackson stepped up and said, we ain't bringing that thing here. Because the way it goes, there's supposed to be curse. There's curses applied to that. And they said whenever these things go in these different cities, all kinds of stuff start happening. You see what I'm saying? All types of stuff start happening to the city structure when these, it's just like the curse of King Tut. So he would not let it come twice. Now, the point I'm trying to make here is, if there's a curse applied to these structures, you heard about this mummy that was in Europe, went around Europe, everybody started getting messed up in the mummy, and they found a person to buy it in New York, threw it on the Titanic, and the rest is history. You see what I'm saying? So, if there's a curse tied to these particular mummies or these Egyptian artifacts, what would you say about the most powerful and ancient book on the planet in the aspect, because it's a book of ritual? And you got the book displayed in what? The British Museum. Can you get the picture here? How in 2000, when it's time for prophecy to show itself, 2001, the millennium, how the grandfather and the grandmother of the European society over here, England, goes and says, get this damn thing out of Britain. Take it to America. And now, the Book of the Dead has been traveling around America since the 1st of 2001 and was in Memphis, Tennessee, which is Memphis, Egypt. It's a big pyramid down there. All of that when 9/11 happened. Even came to New York at the Brooklyn Museum, but they're real quiet about it. Most people, most conscious people, didn't even know about it. Why? Because they had the Book of the Dead. They're real quiet about it. It's in some museum in San Francisco. Now, around this time next year, no, in the spring of the year, it will get to Chicago. It's coming to Chicago in the spring of the year. It's in San Francisco now, and it's getting ready to make its way back. I caught it in Kansas City. Got Kansas City, Missouri. I mean, what is it doing now? See, number one, that's the heartland. Heart chakra. But you want to hide it. You see what I'm saying? They did bring it to Brooklyn, but they were real low-key about it. But my point here is they're doing this thing because the millennium is here. They know that is the judgment scene of judgment scenes, and it's in America. And it's been in America since 9/11. You see, now stick with me here because that's very key. So my point here is, make it a point if you can. You could either wait for Chicago is the next time it's going to be in this area. Or if you're on the West Coast, make it a point, even if it leaves, it saves about 3 months in each museum. So if it leaves San Francisco, just call and find out where the next exhibit is going to be. I should have brought it, but I have a list of the exhibits, and I didn't bring it. But you can call and find out when the next exhibit is going to be. And I'm trying to see if this is the Kansas City Museum, but they had a list. And try to make it a point to go see this Book of the Dead and stand face to face with this energy. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? And if you happen to be on the West Coast out there, try to find out where it is, because it's going to be on the West Coast, I think, this fall, and it's going to make its way back to Chicago. But it's very key. Why is it now? We're talking about one of the most sacred relics of world history. Why would the British Museum give that up and get it up out of there? Yeah. Because they know it's the ultimate ritual book that hadn't been decoded and broken. But all other ritual books is based off of the original ritual book. And you can add the Bible and all that, because all those are ritual books too. You see what I'm saying? But based off of the original book, the Book of the Dead, the oldest book in the world. Very key, very pertinent at this particular time. Now, a couple other things I want to deal with. And one is, every time we make things, we'll say things, and the Spirit will always provide answers. It might be 2 years later, might be 3 years later, but since 1996, I've been going around the country and saying that the projects in America have been emptied out, and we don't know where the people are. So what they have to do is this here. Now we know, anybody been to Chicago know that they've been emptying out those projects for almost 6-7 years now, until it's almost complete. Well, why is it that they will put this story called Chicago is raising its crime-infested towers to resell the poor, but prejudice and tight rental markets are hampering with the big plan? See, first of all, this was a story that they're supposed to have been engaged in 6 years ago when they relocated these people. See the science on this? See, this is it. They have already relocated thousands of blacks, not just in Chicago, but literally thousands and thousands of blacks all over the country. So you think relocating. See, look at the science here now. If they're talking about in 2002 starting a relocation plan,
It's too late now.
but yet they relocated them for the last 6-7 years, that means in actuality, it proves what I was saying was right. They murdered millions of people or thousands of people. And since 1990, we talk about millions of black people right in this country. And now, and the reason now, just to make sure you don't ask questions, where did the people in the projects go? They will already give you the answer. And the way our minds are, because we can't take conspiracy, we can't see things outside of the box. We will say, oh yeah, well they had a big article in Time magazine. So I can hear somebody now 2 years from now going, oh no brother, you're wrong. There's a big article in Time magazine. That's the way mind control goes. Mind control is if they can produce the result or give you an answer to the oppressed or to the victim based on having Stockholm syndrome. That's where the kidnapper fall in love with the kidnapper. Will all automatically go for the explanation because it wants to think that it's slave master.
10 minutes.
Slave master would know what's it wants to think that its slave master would have its honor and its welfare in hand. You see what I'm saying? So I just want to give you that particular information. Now, I want to get to the task at hand. Because you know, time is everything. But and that is this. Because we got to even ask this question. And Dick Gregory said something that was real profound. We don't think on a minute level, so we might think it's nothing. When he asked the question, just like I asked the question, where do these people in the projects go? Well, he asked this question. And I said, that was profound. He did it right here at your lecture that you did for him. He did it right here in Detroit. He said, where did the albinos go after high school? Why you don't see, I mean, I've known several albinos in my life, and I've known some that was grown. But my point here is, where do most of them go? You see what I'm saying? He just asked that question. Where do the albinos go after high school? You know something. You ever thought about that? You see, that's a question that needs to be researched. It's like Renaud Rashidi was saying, let's research the nose. Where do they go? What's the same thing what I'm trying to say here? We must ask these kind of questions. Where did the project people go? You see the concept here? Now, I want to get to the crux of the matter, because the best we can do with time being not on our side in these particular conferences, we need to address certain things. We need to address certain things that is going on in the current events that has something to do with the spirit. I mentioned to you earlier about a black water off the coast of Florida. That is real. What we need is a team of people to search the internet and get as much information as we can. We've been very unsuccessful, no more than 2 or 3 articles at the time on it. You see what I'm saying? But it doesn't matter. You need to get anything you can on this black water off the coast of Florida. Now, let you know now, whatever you get, manufacture that or magnify that tenfold, because they say it's all over the world, but they only tell you about the part in Florida. Now, let me tie this in. We went into a black hole, this black hole that we've been talking about, and they've been announcing all over the magazines that our Milky Way galaxy was right in the heart of. We went dead smack dab into that particular black hole in May the 21st of 2001. Then March the 22nd, 2002, they announced about the black water off the coast of Florida, right on the major TV. But they don't see, they'll do it 1 or 2 times and that will be it. March the 22nd, which was a day after the summer spring equinox, which is actually the spring equinox. Whenever these equinoxes and all this type of stuff come, I think, when is the fall equinox?
September.
Yeah,
21st.
How long?
Next Wednesday.
About another 10 minutes. Yeah. Huh?
It's next Wednesday, I think. 21st.
The 21st.
No.
The day, when is the day?
21st, 22nd.
Okay, and the day is the spring equinox. It's fitting. It's fitting. What's the date?
21st.
Okay, it's fitting that we tell you this. Now, just stick with me. So that we went this black hole thing. They announced it. They said that the black water. They announced it on the spring equinox all over the TV. They only did it like 1 or 2 days. Now it's interesting. They said that they had been tracking it since December of 2001. December the 22nd, as a matter of fact. The winter solstice. They've been tracking it since then. Now, follow me on this. Follow me on this. They said they had been tracking it since the winter solstice. Now, this year, 1 year anniversary after we went through this so-called black hole on May the 21st of 2001. I'm on the telephone. Now, May the 21st, 2001, I'm on the telephone. We're discussing, we've come to find out that they talked about this Stargate opening that was basically this black hole. The moment that I was talking on the phone last year, they had a graduation in Atlanta, Georgia, Clark Atlanta University. And my brother called me and said, man, why you didn't come to the graduation? I said, man, I don't mess with them things no more. He said, well, they just gave Wynton Marsalis an honorary degree. I said, well, they do. They give the stars and all the honorary degrees every week. He said, no, man. He said he reached in his thing, and he reached in his bag and pulled out his damn trumpet and started blowing. And I said, oh man, that's. I said, wait a minute. That's almost like the biblical thing of the Gabriel blowing his horn. He said, man, no. He said, no, man. He reached in his bag and started blowing his horn. I said, oh man. I said, well, today is the day that we went into this so-called, what you call it, this black hole. Now stick with me now, this is very important. So, a year later, I'm on the phone this year, this May 21st. I didn't know it was May 21st. I'm talking to one of the psychic sisters that's a goddess expert that's been involved with me since I started. And as a matter of fact, we started learning the consciousness together years ago. And now, and so she's one of the people that I can bounce things off because she knows the actual knowledge on that particular level of the goddess realm. So, we're on the phone talking, and she said, wait a minute, there's something coming through. She says, an entity coming through. It's a dragon-like entity. His name is Lavado. And she said, he's on dry land, he's making his way to the waters. I said, what waters? The black waters? She said, yes. I said, well, when we get to the black water, she said, about the summer solstice. Now follow me on this. This summer they had a movie called A Rain of Fire came out. These entities, this dragon-like entities, took over the earth, but they had one male dragon who was populating all of them. Naturally, they got to kill the dragon at the end to make a Hollywood story. Now, I started doing work on Lavado as far as finding him in ancient mythology because they already know I could do that. And he said, well, you know, first of all, I'm in the Kabbalah Unveiled by McGregor Mathers. The green book on your shelf. I said, well, I already know who you're talking about. I said, in that case, you Leviathan. Remember, you hear that dragon? I said, Leviathan. Well, in here they go into a little more information on Leviathan in the Kabbalah Unveiled. The Kabbalah is the esoteric doctrine of the Torah. I said, okay. You Leviathan, the great voice of the water, or the great dragon of the sea. I said, okay. Then I started doing more information on where that story came from, because the biblical story is just a revised story of some ancient thing, and I had to go all the way back to ancient. I found it in Hemmitt. I found it in Greece. I found it in all these particular places, but one of the most places where I found more prominent information was in the Babylonian Genesis, which is ancient Persia, which is now what? Modern day Iran and Iraq. All right, now follow me on this. He said, hey, I need to do a ritual. You need to do a ritual. I said, well, you know, I haven't done no rituals in about a year. He said, you need to do a ritual. So we did this ritual in August the 11th. Just so happened it was a month before 9/11. And let me tell you something. This cat is real. Because the first thing I did the ritual, funds dried up and they had no money for rent or nothing. I called the landlord and said, look, come take this damn house. Because I can't afford it. My career is crashed and burned. He said, I don't want it. You can't move out. You owe me money. You can't move out. First, I'm like, man, can you believe this cat? And I hung up the phone, and about an hour later, the spirit was like, you dummy, we just hooked the shit up for you. And the man just told you you can't move out of his house because you owe him money. So, my rent was $650. I handed that nigga $400 2 weeks ago. I ain't heard nothing from him. I said, man, the spirit is moving that way. The key here is, now how this applies to you is, number one, this entity or this energy is here. It's an energy, it's a presence, it's in the black waters, it's in the black hole. Now, he said, I'm the God that set over fire and water. What happened this summer? Europe is underwater, and they ain't telling you there's 10 states that was burning up out in the west. They will only give you one state or something like that, but it's about 10 states. He said, I'm the God that set over fire and water, and Europe was up underwater. The key here is, all my people that's in my little conscious circle in Atlanta start going through all kind of hell, and people didn't understand, why are we going through this hell? Finances, this, that. And the key was, the answer to all that was, whatever you value the most, you got to let it go. With me, I didn't value nothing, but I had grown accustomed the last 2-3 years in my little house I got. I never had no house. Next thing I got me a damn house with hardwood floors and stuff like that, you know. So I'm in my little comfort zone. You know what I'm saying? Blasting my stereo. I ain't never had to blast. I was living in an apartment. I couldn't have blasted my stereo that loud before. You know, so I'm blasting my stereo, you know, walking around naked and stuff, all kind of stuff like this, you know. So in so many ways, I probably. And so everybody had to let go. And what happened was a lot of people said, man, I'm doing this. And the spirit was like, whatever it is, it It could be yours, it could be this, it could be that. Whatever you attach to, you got to let go because now is the time. Now going back to this particular thing. In this particular book here, in the movie Rain of Fire, they show this picture of a dragon Tiamat at the beginning of the movie. This dragon. They show this picture at the beginning of the movie. This is the key. Okay. They show this picture in the movie Rain of Fire that came out on July 19th about this entity. His name is Lamu, and a female entity called La'amu in this. We ready? In this. Lamu and La'amu in here. Check this out. This tablet is found in Iraq. Now, understand something. We know that the Garden of Eden, that we all have the discrepancies of being in. Hemmitt, being in Egypt, being in Africa, being in Mount Kilimanjaro, but ain't it funny that every ancient indigenous people say that they got an original place where man stood up? But it would make sense if this was all one landmass. Well, in the biblical version, we're not talking about the real Garden of Eden. In the biblical version, where do they say man first stood up? The Tigris and the Euphrates River. Now get out of the discrepancy. We're not talking about where man first stood up. Get out of that. Because even if you say that in the beginning, there's got to be a reason why the Persians or whatever had those particular rivers as even being mentioned in their material that later on was adopted by the Bible. Get out of the origin thing because we can get so caught up on discrepancies. My point here is this. Anybody ever thought about it? That the land is so old until even when they was bombing the place in 1988, 98, one of the bombs went into the Euphrates River. So whether you can, this is not a biblical debate on the origin of things. My point here is the Euphrates River has got to be something sacred in the first place if it's all black people stuff to be mentioned. You see where I'm coming from here? So the Tigris and the Euphrates, that's where all this stuff is going down. And all of a sudden we get this and get a movie right before the war. And now all the people up and on saying, my goodness, the weapon inspector from the UN said, hey, I was over there in 1988, the man ain't got no bombs. And now they making this man here a doggone outcast and a social pariah because he's telling the truth. So if they're not going up in there because of that, because Saddam Hussein is part of the United States government, then why are they going up in there? They're going up in there because there's a gateway and there's a connection with those black waters, this entity called La'amu, which is called the Lamu hero. I've already traced him back to the doggone Sphinx. You get Lamu in that area, you get La'amu, you get the word Labu, then you get the word in Arabic, Abu, which is called the Sphinx, father of the globe. Which the Lamu is a double entity, which is fucking Ra-Har-Q or Ha-Ma-Ku, Horus on the horizon, or what they call Horus on the horizon. Ra-Heru-Kahudi, which is the Sphinx. But they're in that particular area because there's a gateway in that particular area and there's some stuff that's active. And because remember now, they got these psychic things and they can tell these people the areas that's a hotbed. And I'm trying to tell you, there's something going down. They're pushing for war, but it's something major. But all of a sudden, we done made contact with this particular entity. This cat is so doggone powerful till he wreaks havoc on anything. This cat came in my house and I just fell asleep. And you know, I had to fight about an hour just to wake up out of sleep. No pills, no nothing. Just the energy was that powerful, so I'm trying to say. My point here is, spiritually, there's something going on. And they're trying to distract the people with this war. But there's something else going on. And it all has something to do. The melanin aspect is they introduced the Coca-Cola and all that stuff that I was telling you about. And also, they had to, Europe and America was on fire and Europe was underwater. And this black water is everywhere. The black water is melanin. It's no different than melanin, but as above, so within. As above, so below. As without, so within. There's something happening in us that they got to give you the Coca-Cola, the fluoride now that they're saying is in all foods to try to shut this thing down. You see what I'm saying? To try to shut this thing down. But remember, people, we planned this thing here. We planned the grand finale millions of years ago, or thousands of years ago. So therefore, there's nothing that they can do that can stop it. You just got to know when the trumpet blows. But I'm telling you, it's matching up. For the first time, it's matching up precisely. I'm finding so much stuff every doggone day. That's how precise this thing is matching up.
What about setting one?
Huh?
What about the mummy they brought from Toronto down to Emory University, setting one?
Okay, so they got to set it with, man, they dealing with all kinds of stuff. You know what I'm saying? At this particular time, there's so much going on. Just like why they won't show those, how many, 13 mummies of Ramesses II. Ramesses, those children. You see what I'm saying? There's so much going on. You see, there's so much going on but that's one of the keys. We can get into a discussion later on the panel discussion and open this back up because there's some stuff, but it has a lot to do. But remember now, also too, the book The Zealotar said that there was white people were saying our only hope is we got to meet up with some Afrocentric or Masonic group in America. One white boy wrote in the fall of 2000, he said, we're warring against each other. Different Masonic groups, different organizations and stuff, we're warring against each other. They said, when we look up from our fight, there's going to be a whole group of black gods ruling. And remember this, the people in India and in Pakistan, wasn't there in Pakistan, all that area, that they just fought? Well, guess what the Pakistanis said in 1998? The people in Pakistan said that there's a group of black gods that's getting ready to rise up in America and we want to be ready to greet them. Then all of a sudden you got Bin Laden. And then they blow up that big Buddha over there.
Sure did.
This is what the Pakistanians said, which is black people over that area. They keep showing you that little desert bomb site. That's all TV. They map out a place and tell the people not to go to. But they said in 1998, in Pakistan and in India, they was doing some rituals and doing some ceremonies, and there was some people over there. They said, what happened? They said, there was a group of black gods that's getting ready to rise up in the United States, and we need to prepare for them. Same people that went through that war. You see what I'm saying? Now you got this foolishness over there. But they say that the people will rise up out of us.
What about Rice and Paul Powell?
Just puppets, but even damn Powell even disagreed about this one. Now you know Condoleezza Rice called a guy in Willie Brown in New York and told him that not go to New York. You see what I'm saying? And and they told Colin Powell was the finger man for Patrice Lumumba. Yeah, that's what your boy talks about that, the Jew boy Rab Shon.
That's what setting him off was rise.
Yeah, right. And stuff like that. So my point here is you got those types of things that's going on. Those types of things that's going on. So it's so much ritualistic going on. Why they got to explain how all of a sudden when the millennium comes, them two black sisters just start kicking ass. They was all right before the millennium. They went in 99, my girl won the French Open. Now they dominate. You know, now it's like one needs to sit down so the other one can win. Because it's just hands down. You see what I'm saying? And one is named Venus.
Stop.
And Serena. That's serene. Serenity. And then the one named Venus, that's the goddess of love. But guess what? In the book of the Divine Cow found on Tutankhamun's mummy case, the book of the Divine Cow talks about how Hathor, who is the goddess Venus, and Erzuli. She's the goddess of love. She's the goddess Venus in Greece. She's the goddess Aphrodite in Greece, which is Venus. She's the goddess Venus in Rome, and she's the goddess Ishtar in Samaria, Astarte, and Hathor in Kemet, and Erzuli in Voodoo. Why is it that the goddess Venus in the book of Divine Cow, they say that person is coming back to destroy the earth. Then you get this girl dominating. It's a symbolic gesture, but they know all of that. You see. Now you got this sister that's coming. She'll be in Chicago on the 28th, and she'll be in Atlanta, I think, on the 1st and 2nd a sister that went and studied the voodoo thing in Benin, Africa, married an Egyptian priest. No, one of the head of the voodoo priesthood. This sister now she's in America traveling around, and she got a book out called A Mark of Voodoo. What's that girl's? What's her name? Calder? Dr. Calder? I think that's it. It's sort of mine, but I'm just trying to say that some things is actually happening.
I couldn't stop it. I got hungry.
Yeah.